so.
Larry, okay tonight?
All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome. Hopefully everybody's doing well. Thank you for this fine Monday evening. It's May 18th, 2020. It's the Committee on Finance and the Providence City Council. We're going to call this meeting to order. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Chairman Igliozzi?
Present.
Vice Chairwoman Ryan?
Present.
Councilwoman Castillo?
Present.
Councilman Anthony?
Present.
Councilman Taylor? Councilman Taylor not here?
It's not here yet.
We have 4 present and that. We have 4.
Thank you. Let the record reflect, we want to welcome Council President Pro Tem Correa, Councilwoman Kerwin, Councilman Espinal. Let me see if any, the Internal Auditor, Gina Costa, Jimmy Lavati, the Treasurer, Kenny Cheverine, the City Solicitor, and I think that's who we have at this time for the council members.
So noted.
Thank you. So, very quickly, follow up, and I know that we were asking earlier, I just want to kind of get to it a little bit for us. The Solicitor Cheverini.
Yes, sir.
Last time it was the department, the assessor's office was before this committee, and the department inspection standards came before, and they were talking about doing additional spot assessments when someone puts in a request to renovate their property. And I see we received it looks like a pretty succinct opinion, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. So, in the question, of course, was if a homeowner, and this is for the committee members, is doing renovations, can the tax assessor inspect the property renovations to get an additional value of the property and go beyond the work performed and do a full assessment? And your position was the inspections are illegal and probably improper. Is that correct, Solicitor?
Correct, and I think there may be one caveat, because under the charter, the tax assessor has a duty to do fair and equitable assessments. However, let's say the tax assessor comes upon a situation where there's blatant fraud and the property owner is trying to pull a fast one essentially on the city. I think there may be an obligation to correct the wrong if there's just it's a great injustice. But generally speaking, spot inspections are improper and illegal. You just can't show up after the assessment's been set and say, gee, I noticed there's new lights, new roofing, and change the assessment.
Great. So what I'd like to do is a follow-up, and Mr. Mancini in particular, and I know Mr. Mancini's here, and Ms. Silveria, I know you're in charge of the tax assessor's office. I would ask that you have them reach out, city solicitor reach out to them, and if they are doing those types of things, please ask them to cease and desist immediately, Ms. Silveira and Mr. Mancini, per even the city solicitors, and if they plan on doing it, we have the answer now. So, and also I'd like to know if they have been doing it. I would like to have a full vetting of it, and I'd ask the internal auditor to reach out to the assessor and see if the assessor has been doing this since they've taken office. And if they have, then we need to get it addressed ASAP. So, internal auditor, did you hear the request, Madam Auditor?
Yes, sir. Yes, I heard it.
And Mr. Solicitor, can you work with the auditor and we square this with the assessor? And then if they have, then we have to get them to address that immediately and fix that situation.
Certainly.
Thank you. Mr. Mancini, Ms. Rivera, I advise you to have the assessor contact Mr. Severini and Ms. Costa and to work out, and if they've been doing it, they need to fix that situation immediately, and please let them be aware they cannot do that. All right? So I'm glad when they both came, they talked about it, and thank you, Mr. Solicitor Severini, for expressing and explaining that process. Thank you. So that was a housekeeping measure, and just make a note. And Madam Auditor and Mr. Severini, Solicitor, I'd ask that probably for the next finance meeting, or whether it's tomorrow, Wednesday, I think it's Wednesday, I think it's tomorrow and Wednesday, if you could both give us a report on what happened and when you reached out to the assessor, and give us a sense of what's going on, okay? All right, thank you. So with that, I think right now we're going to continue with a follow-up with the Department of Public Works. They came a week or so ago. Of course, we've been running extremely long meetings. So what we'd like to do is first have the folks, why don't we swear in Mr. Mancini, Ms. Severia, and then we'll swear in Mr. Parada and his team. So Madam Clerk, could we do that first? Mr. Clerk, who's going to swear them in?
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do.
Starting with Mr. Mancini, can you state your name, please, sir, and your position?
Yep. Lawrence J. Mancini, Chief Financial Officer, City of Providence.
Thank you.
Sarah Silveria, Finance Director.
All right, great. And I think I'm going to go with the DPW folks. Swear them in.
Those in DPW, please raise your right hand. Do you swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do.
Starting with the director, could you state your name for the record and your position, sir?
Leo J. Parada, Director of Public Works.
Craig Hockman, Deputy Chief Engineer.
Natalie D. Urso, Traffic Engineer.
Maureen McManus, Associate Director of Environmental Services.
Thank you. I think we ended with, I believe, Mr. Mancini, I think we ended with, well, we were going to pick up where on the revenue side of the highway and for the highway section was.
No,
and then we were
Mr. Chairman,
going to expense highway.
I think I had us moving into snow removal, if I'm not mistaken, but.
In the highway section or in the environmental control?
No, we had cleared all through, we had cleared, sir, through highway and sewer. We were now moving into snow removal. I'm sorry, snow removal, sewer construction, garage, and then finally parking administration.
Okay. So, all right, so why don't we go to the next, let's go to snow removal then. Committee members and council members, if you have any questions about highway, of course, you have that opportunity. Mr. Mancini, why don't you go to the snow removal, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Good evening again, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Continuing with the Department of Public Works, this is Division 101-510, known as snow removal. This is not a revenue-generating department. With respect to expenditures, salaries are budgeted at $500,000 for FY21, consistent with the FY20 budget. This department carries no benefits. Services are budgeted at $705,000 for FY21, once again consistent with FY20. While supplies are also budgeted at $973,500 for FY21, once again consistent with FY20. There is no capital expenditures here. Mr. Chairman, basically the budget for FY21 has been submitted at level funding, given the precarious nature of this division, given that it's snow removal, and one doesn't always know what will be ahead of us in weather. We thought it was practical to keep the budget at the same level as FY20. If I could direct your attention to page 62 of the 3-box report, you will see before you in the left-hand column how those 2 years budgets, the 21 proposed and the 20 actual, are nearly identical, in fact, in every category. With that said, Mr. Chairman, if I could direct your attention to the center box, and This is the FY20 budget as adopted compared to what today we project. The budget is projecting a savings at the snow removal overtime line of $283,206 based on the incurrence of that overtime this year, which, as you know, has been greatly reduced because of the weather and the fact that the inclement season was rather pleasant and rather beneficial to the city budget, I might add. Rentals not classified. Once again, we're expecting a savings there of $435,000 in the FY20 budget, and this savings in trend continues throughout the entire snow budget for all the reasons associated with the weather. Construction and maintenance supplies will generate a savings of $114,000. Material, snow, and ice removal will generate a savings of $202,000. It is our expectation that the entire snow budget will generate a $1,036,548 budget savings in FY20. That completes the 3-box report and the narrative for 101-510. I am welcome to take any questions and, if necessary, speak to Director Parada.
Yes, so when we look in the organizational chart, Director, where is there like a snow removal czar, or is it under the Highway Superintendent Division? Where is that, sir?
Yeah, so basically, snow removal falls under, obviously, the director and the highway superintendent. Basically takes charge along with his deputy, and all actions fall under our auspices. So we work together as a team to direct snow removal operations.
Okay, so if we can go to the budget. I mean, clearly snow removal overtime, is down dramatically. Rentals of equipment is down, right? Miscellaneous expenses, can you tell me what that comprises of?
So that basically would be like snow plow parts, whether it be plow blades, other components needed for repairing spreaders, anything like that that will help us obviously do the job during snow removal.
But that's one unit that you ended up not actually going down, right? You still spent your entire budget of that, right?
Well, typically, yeah, we have to replenish almost every year with blades, etc. It's not unusual for us to use those funds. Materials and snow and ice removal, we do buy the salt, and we have a good stockpile of it, which we'll be able to carry over to next year.
So let's talk about construction and maintenance supplies. What did you earmark $250,000 in this budget? What were you supposed to do with that money specifically?
So basically, we would buy, as I said earlier, plow blades, make necessary repairs to any vehicles if something goes wrong.
Oh, no, Director. You stated that that's what you did with miscellaneous expenses. You're saying you do the same thing with construction and maintenance supplies also? The same.
Sorry, I'm mistaken. I thought I misunderstood you. The miscellaneous expenses is the lease, was leasing for equipment that we no longer have to lease out. So those payments are over. So that's done. So we have lease payments for vehicles. That's over and done with.
So then for the upcoming proposed budget, should the $105,000 be removed?
Yes.
Those payments are done?
Sorry.
Well, no, but it's not though. So therefore, my point is that you're still, if that 105 was for leases and the leases now are done, then we shouldn't continue. They shouldn't put the money in the budget. All that if it's not so. Gina, can you make a note to remove the $105,000 from that side of the budget, please?
Yes, okay.
Gina, all right? There's no more lease payments, so they don't need the $105,000. Great. All right. Next, when we go to construction and maintenance supplies, you had a budget of $250,000. You spent $135,070. Were there any type of maintenance or construction supplies that you did without that you still would need?
Yeah, we're always it's always something that we need because we don't know what's going to happen with the plow blades, other springs on trucks. There's so many things that can go wrong during the winter season. We like to stockpile in advance for the next year. As we take apart the trucks right now, we find other things that we may not have found when the trucks were still put together, whether it's the spreaders and whether it's the plow blades. So as we unsuit them, we may find things that are not working properly or should be repaired before the next winter season comes along.
Okay. And right now, the state of the equipment itself, where it's right now, is it being, what's the state of all the plow and all the snow removal equipment right now?
So basically, the last time we used that equipment, the bulk of it was April 17th. We had a forecast of 2 to 4 inches that Friday evening. So right now, all the trucks are being unsuited, washed down, spreaders are being taken off, plow blades are being taken off, and they'll be reintroduced to the road with regular staffing, give us access to vehicles for whether it be asphalt or other types of projects.
Okay, and materials for snow and ice removal, I see you have $520,969 that you spent. You presently have a, I guess we're calling it a salt pile reserve somewhere?
Yes, we do. We have one here at Terminal Road, and we have some at Triggs Golf Course, which we are removing and going to combine with what we have at Terminal Road, and we'll be able to save that till next season. And hopefully next year goes as well for us in terms
How many
of
days of salt do you have? Do you know? Like how much do you have?
Yeah, I would say it's at least 2 or 3 storms worth. It depends upon the nature of the storm. If it's just a quick icing, you probably go further than that. But if it's a major storm, it will be a little less. So I would say 2 or 3 days.
And you're gonna remove you're gonna move the salt from Triggs and move it all to the Terminal Road, and it's all gonna be stored there now.
That's correct. Yep.
All right. That's gonna be during normal time. That's not gonna be in overtime operations, right?
That's correct. Normal time.
All right. Questions from committee members at this time on this one?
None at this time, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mr. Mancini, do you want to go to the next piece, the sewer construction 101-511, sir?
Yes, sir. So, Mr. Chairman, as you aptly noted, 101-511 is sewer construction. There is revenue in this department. It's budgeted at $10,000. That's a decrease of $1,000 from the FY20 budget. As to expenditures, beginning with salaries, the salaries for FY21 are budgeted at $533,401, representing a decrease of $20,674 from the prior year budget. The decrease is due to increased attrition as the city plans to delay posting vacancies and will not be filling non-essential positions in FY21. Benefits for FY21 is budgeted at $395,000, an increase of $20,807 from the prior year. Services, there are no services budgeted in this department. As to supplies for FY21 is budgeted at $92,000, an increase of $30,000 over the FY20 budget. This increase is in the special castings line item due to a need for additional inlet stones. And as to capital, the budget, this budget will have a capital budget which will remain consistent at $50,000 level funded to the amount that was included in the FY20 budget. With your permission, Mr. Chairman, we'll get to the box report. Page 63 is a revenue depiction of city revenues. You'll see that the revenue for sewer construction, maintenance, and drain fees will be budgeted at an amount $1,000 lower than last year at $10,000. If you can direct your attention to the center box, you'll see that for the FY20 budget, we are just about approaching $10,000, perhaps by the time we get to year end. Currently, it's at $9,255. Hence the need to reflect that in the upcoming budget year by reducing that budget by $1,000. If I could direct your attention further, page 64. We begin to review expenditures. Beginning in the left-hand columns, you'll see that salaries does reduce by $19,544. Overtime has increased by $40,000. and longevity has a slight change of $218. I'd like to direct your attention, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, to the center box and stay in the salary category. Salaries for FY20 is projected to be approximately $51,000 lower than the budgeted amount. Overtime, however, will be at an amount $25,862 over budget. Hence the reason why they've adjusted the overtime budget for FY21. And longevity is within the budgeted amount for the year. Moving back to the left column, Mr. Chairman, we will skip over benefits, as that's the purview of non-departmental and finance. And looking at small tools, shop, and supplies, we've level funded the budget for that line item at $10,000 for FY21, identical to FY20. Likewise, with construction and maintenance supplies, we have level funded that budget at $15,000. Moving down below to gravel sand, that budget has increased by $2,000. Moving down below further to special castings, that budget has increased by $30,000. And the final item on that page, cement, plaster, and products, that budget will remain at zero this year, a $2,000 reduction from prior year. Mr. Chair, if I could continue into page 65, and then we'll revert back to the center box. Left column, budget, that will be level funded at $50,000 in FY21, identical to the budget of FY20. Now, Mr. Chairman, if I may bring you back to page 64, center columns, to compare the FY20 budget to what we believe will be actual projection. Under tools and supplies, we believe will be at or below budget at $8,788. Likewise, with construction and maintenance materials, will be below budget at $13,536. Hence the reason why in both of those line items we've maintained level funding for FY21 versus FY20. Again, in the gravel and sand budget, we think we'll be at budget, perhaps slightly lower. And then special castings, this year we'll probably spend an amount below budget, but the director will speak to you about the need to justify why we need additional castings going forward. The gravel stones. And then cement and plaster products looks to me as if it's going to be coming in at or under budget at $1,994. Directing your attention, sir, to page 65 in the category of structures and improvements. Thus far this year, projecting $31,430 of spending against a budget of $50,000. That completes the report on the three box, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee or council members, and I am available to take questions or direct them to the director.
Director, who is the organizational chart? Because you don't have names to it, so I'd like you to add names to the organizational chart so we know who's who, where they belong. So who is your sewer superintendent?
The sewer superintendent is David Mambro.
Okay. So let's go to that. Can you just give us a quick, if you stay on the phone, tell us what does the sewer construction division do specifically?
So basically, they maintain all of the city-owned sewers in the city, whether that's flushing the lines, cleaning the lines. They clean the storm grates. Also, they assist with cameraing. They determine whether or not someone's line may be backed up, whether it's our line or assisting people who have laterals. We don't do the laterals. That's the homeowner's responsibility, but we can help determine with information whether it's our line or the lateral line that is blocked. We take care of flooding throughout the city, making sure that storm lines are free and clear, or if they're not, clear them out. Also assist when there are some lines that have subpar capacity, clean them out so that water will drain properly. And they all do regular maintenance and follow up with our street sweeping program to make sure that the grates are cleaned as well.
Right. So let's talk about the storm drains. So you may know, Director, is the city under any type of consent decree to identify all storm drains, fix them, improve them, and clean them, et cetera, to deal with that? Do we have anything going on at this time? Solicitor?
I know about it, but I'm not familiar with the requirements. I do remember a few years ago, there was a consent judgment or decree entered into with the city, and I think it was DEM or the state, but I'm not familiar with the terms and conditions.
So then I'll direct it to the director. Are you familiar with the terms and conditions of the consent decree of the city of Providence?
I'm aware of some of the parts of the decree. I know our engineer, chief engineer, Bill Bombard, is probably well versed in that. We have a contract with CDM Smith. I believe they have created a map of all of our stormwater system, and that information is now provided to our sewer crew so that they can clean all of the storm grates on a regular basis. And that information will then be provided to DEM as part of the consent decree, along with our street sweeping program.
So is Mr. Bombard available this evening?
I don't see him on the line, but I'm sure I can get him.
So I'd like to know where we are with the consent decree, because I'm sure that if we don't meet our milestones, there's also financial penalties the city would have to bear based on its inability to follow it. I'd like to know where we are with it. What's the action plan the city put together? Where have you? You probably have to do a couple things. One, identify all your storm drains. Number two, identify the status of them. Number three, identify if there's any type of illegal connections, and then how we're addressing that in a methodical way. And then you have so many milestones to get so many done, or get it done in a certain time frame. So I need to understand that. We want to get a better understanding of what's happening there. Is this one company that you're saying they hired? Are they doing the GIS? Are they doing the, what do you call it, the identification markers? And are they also doing the storm drain repairs?
I know they've done the GIS. Maybe Craig Hockman can help with that too, but I don't think they're doing the repairs. But they have identified everything in the city.
Right,
Yes.
Mr. Hockman. Hey, 1 second, sir. Madam Clerk, please swear him in. And I think Mr. Urso too. Madam Clerk, please swear them in.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Please state your name and titles for the record.
Mr. Urso.
I do. Craig Hockman,
State your
Deputy
name.
Chief Engineer.
Thank you.
Sure. So,
Just been Natali D'Urso, traffic engineer.
Great. So, Mr. Hockman, can you enlighten us?
yeah, so the director was correct. We do have an engineering firm, CDM Smith, who has been actively working on mapping our stormwater system and our overall sewer system for the past 2 years. It's been quite an undertaking. We've scanned all of our sewer documents and have brought it into a GIS environment. This will, number one, identify our sewer watersheds, the areas that come under stormwater permitting, and will then allow us to further our efforts to satisfy the consent decree.
Right,
Some other action items that we've been working on have been, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So there's a cost to this in plan. The consent decree outlines a plan the city would have to follow, and there's a cost attached to it. What is the cost attached to it? And has the city been, what's the plan? What's the cost? And has the city been following the plan? And before you answer, let the record reflect that Councilman Taylor is present. Mr. Hoffman?
So noted.
Sure, so I'd
So
like the
can you tell
opportunity.
us-
Yeah, I'd like the
Correct, sir.
opportunity to confer with the chief engineer. He's really drafted the plan. I've been implementing some of these actionable items, which I could speak to. But the overall plan and budget, we'd have to just confer with the chief engineer.
So the next question is, where would that budget be in this budget? Director, Mr. Vera, Mr. Mancini. Where's the consent decree budget in this budget?
Mr. Chairman, I believe that matter was previously and has always been contained within the sewer maintenance budget. And while that's been reduced greatly over the past years, at one time I believe it was sizable. It was more than $100,000 per year. This year it's been reduced, and some of that may be part of the upcoming CIP, and so that perhaps some of those dollars will be afforded under the capital budget.
Well, we'd like to, here's the thing. We want to get a better understanding is what's the budget, where it is, and then if it's going to be the CIP, we want to make sure we know how much is it going to be identified, so it will be officially identified, and that CIP money will go to that. So when tomorrow night we have a finance meeting. Could you please have Mr. Bombard, and then you guys give us a briefing on the consent decree. What is the matrix of it? What's the value? What's the cost? How much is it? And where's the budget for it? Okay? All right, John, I'm director, and Mr. Hockman, and I guess Mr. Bombard, and Mr. Chevrini, if you can also provide a copy of the consent decree for tomorrow night's meeting, I think it would be helpful, okay?
Sure,
Gentlemen,
will do.
Gentlemen? Okay.
Yes, will do.
So, somewhere in here, right? So now let's talk about the normal sewer construction budget itself. So what we have is we allocated roughly, at the end of the day, the budget is basically, the total budget's almost $1 million. Is that right, Mr. Mancini? Sewer construction? In total, is that right?
Yes.
So out of $1 million, it looks like it pretty much, at the end of the day, only maybe about 100,000 of that $1 million is actually for, supplies and construction expenses, capital expenses. Actually, you're gonna be less than that, right?
Yeah.
Question is,
Correct.
how many, knowing what we know, but how many miles of sewers is the city responsible for? Mr. Director Parada, how many miles of sewer is the city responsible for?
Let me get you a figure. I don't know if I have it as miles, but maybe Craig would have that. I know there's over 12,000 basins, 4,000 inlets, 351 miles of sewer.
So with that said, so here's my question. To carry a budget of almost $1 million, and for the sake of conversation, just, I'm trying to get it. And I do know we need the sewer construction division, but, and to have approximately, 8 people working there, and basically only spending about 40 or 50 grand in construction, of course, doesn't make sense to me. So I'm trying to understand is they have to be doing more than like $50,000 worth of construction out there. Right? I gotta presume, some of the sewer system is pretty old in some parts of the city. So so what are they doing on a daily basis? Like I find it hard to believe that even if they're out there fixing, repairing sewer lines, stuff like that, it's gonna be more than like 40 grand of supplies to do this massive system. Just seems to be there's an out of balance over here. So can some of you explain to us how that plays out? Can you explain the imbalance?
Basically, they can do minor repairs, major repairs, which are costly. We don't have the capability of doing, and that's where it falls into the CIP. It's if we need to replace a cover or a grate or make a minor repair to a sewer line, we have the capability of doing that. But there have been some major failures in the system, and those can run into the hundreds of thousands of dollars. And to have that in the budget, wouldn't be able to do that on an annual basis. That's where it falls into the CIP, where you have some major failures. So,
but we don't. The CIP is not the. CIP is a kind of a new thing that we have. So for the past fiscal year, and for the past couple of years, the past 2 years, right? What kind of sewer projects have we done, and in-house, I guess, and then how many sewer projects have you done hiring a contractor or, I guess, a private company? So I'd like to.
Hold on.
Do you have that information?
we can get you the number of times that we've hired private contractors, but basically their main job is basically servicing the basins, the inlets, and cleaning.
Yep.
It's more of a maintenance issue rather than a restoration or repair. It's those major restorations and repairs that we don't have the capability of performing.
I respect that, Director. That's why I'm asking is,
Yeah.
it looks like your crew handles the basic maintenance, which is fine, you said, but major restoration in a, what, I don't know, 100-plus-year-old sewer system. So would like to know, what's the status of that system?
What do you want, buddy?
Do we have a construction plan, even like a 5-year construction plan, 10-year construction plan? And I'll give you an example. The Water Supply Board, right? They come before this committee and they talk about these 10-year plans. They're like, okay, our goal is going to do X amount of, replacing this piping or doing this water line or whatever it is. And they talk, okay, it's a 10-year plan. This is what we're doing. And by the end of in the 5 years, we're going to have so much. And so they have their normal maintenance, everyday maintenance crews going on every day. But then they have an extended, asset management plan, right? So I guess what I'm looking for is what's the asset management? And I know the sewers aren't the most sexiest of subjects, but it's something in a city this in age. It's great that we spend money on a lot of the high glossy things that we do in the city to make everybody happy and shiny. But when we neglect the basic stuff, then we get caught behind. So where do we have an asset management plan for the sewer system?
Well, Mr. Hockman can correct me if I'm wrong, but the CDM Smith is the piece of that will initiate that plan. That's what we needed.
Right.
We needed all that done first so that we can create the plan to do what you call is, yes, very unsexy. People don't see the sewer system. It's hidden underground. It's been there for hundreds of years, and maintaining that is critical to the overall infrastructure of the city, because we have sewer failures, whether it's a break in the line, it creates sinkholes, and we see that on the road surface, and people just see it as a pothole, but it's worse than that. So those are the types of things that we're doing now with the initial stuff that CDM Smith has created for us and mapping the system. So
Yes.
that's what we're looking towards.
Yeah, so we're actually,
Mr. Hockman? Mr. Hockman?
yeah,
You saying something?
so that is something we're actively working on. The work we're doing now to prioritize the lines at which we want to look is to drive our decisions for the CIP that we're currently in, the 2020 to 2021 CIP. So we're trying to put data behind it, trying to use data-driven decisions to improve our sewer system. So this is the first time since at least Narragansett Bay Commission was established that we're cleaning and inventorying our lines and coming up with this in developing our asset management around our sewer system.
And CDM Smith is doing the asset management plan, is that what you're saying? So they're not just doing the storm drains, they're doing the entire system? Is that what you're saying, for the record?
That's correct.
So when were they engaged? How long have they been working for us?
I believe they were engaged sometime in 2017 or 2018. I'm going to go with the latter on that one. I could confirm that for you later.
Let's do this first. Are they done with the asset management plan for at least the storm drain system?
No. So we came up with the initial plan. That's what we're out cleaning and inventorying now. The results will edit that plan, and those findings will help drive the asset management plan into the future.
So now that's for the storm drain.
It's for both storm and sanitary, and combined. So our entire sewer system.
Mr. Solicitor, what was the time frame? When did the consent decree come down on the city?
I don't know specifically. I recall a few years ago, but I don't know. I can't speak with any certainty.
So, like to get a handle on CDM Smith. So tomorrow, I'd like you to present the asset management plan to date that CDM Smith has, the storm drain plan, consent decree, where we are with all that. Then it looks like you've engaged them to do an additional asset management plan to the actual sewer system itself. Is that correct, gentlemen?
That's correct.
Right. And how much have you paid CDM Smith to date so far for the work they've done?
I don't know that.
Okay. Gina, will you pull the contract for tomorrow night, Gina, the internal auditor?
Yes, I will.
Please pull the contract. Okay. All right. So next, we also let's get a sense of also that. Okay. Any questions, committee members? All right. So just very quickly, in this department, you have a high attrition rate, and you plan on going from, it looks like it's 10 positions to 8. Is that right? Am I reading that right?
I believe that's what we have here, 8 people.
Yep. You have what? There are 10 funded positions, but you have 8 people, right? But we're going to remove 2 of the 10, is that right? Mr. Mancini?
No, Mr. Chairman, this department is authorized for, this year, 15 positions are allowed with 10 funded. Last year, there were 16 positions allowed with 10 funded. So the same number of funded positions exist in FY20 and FY21.
So right now, only 8 of 10 are being filled? 8 or 10 are filled right now?
I have it at 10. So I have it at
Mr. Chair, if I may?
10.
Yes, because I'm counting before. I'm counting 8 positions, but internal auditor, can you help us with this, please?
I don't know if any of those employees on workers' comp, when I had asked for the information originally, they didn't answer it directly, so I don't know if they have employees on workers' comp. But 3 of the 8 that are currently active are also limited.
Limited, why?
I would ask the director for that.
Okay. So, Director, can you explain to me why 3? So the 3 sewer equipment operators, they're limited? Oh, I see, the limited. Okay. Why is the cement finisher limited, I guess? Is that what you're looking at, Gina? What does that mean? Can you help us, folks?
If I may, so we have 9 of the 10 are filled. There's 1 that's vacant, had not been posted by March. The positions are limited
which one's
because they
that?
are filling positions of people who are on comp.
So which one did you just fill?
I believe it was a construction worker, was just filled recently. Sewer construction.
How long ago? I mean, like the past month or so?
I would say, yeah, it was just around March, February, March.
Okay, so that position's been filled. And is that person working? Is that person at home?
They're working.
Are they working every day?
Every day.
Every day. So that new hire is working every day. So let's talk about the cement finisher. Is that person working every day?
Yes. I'm not sure if that's the vacant spot, but I know we have everyone on that crew working every day. The construction worker position is open.
How about the 4 persons working every day too?
Yes, he is.
All right. So are there any of, okay, so that's on that. Then we have a heavy equipment operator working every day?
Yes.
All right. Okay. And we got 2 labor, no, we got 1 laborer at this time, right? Are they working every day?
Yes.
Okay. And your 3 sewer equipment operators are working every day?
Yes.
Okay. And your superintendent of sewer construction working every day, right?
That's correct. Yep.
That's one department that everybody's working every day. No one's staying home, getting paid and doing nothing. Is that right, Director?
That's correct.
All right. And I would just ask, Madam Auditor, go through that process and review that, okay? What position is that you're looking to post right now, you said?
The construction worker position is open.
Oh, wait, I thought you said that's the one you hired in March.
No, I'm sorry. I believe that was a sewer equipment operator. There were two positions that were posted at the same time.
Okay.
One we
So
filled-
you've hired another sewer equipment operator. That position was hired in March.
Mhm.
And you have posted a sewer construction worker.
That's correct.
Okay, all right. And you haven't filled it yet, correct?
That's correct.
All right. So at this time, you probably, right now, I know the way the CBA works, that you probably could get someone who's sitting home getting paid and doing nothing. One of your workers could actually help work with this thing if you don't post this. Actually, you can get someone working already hired, right? So could you, right now, it seems to me, it doesn't seem prudent to fill that position when you have so many workers sitting home doing nothing and getting paid. So why don't you activate one of those workers and try to get them, put them to work? Since this seems like this is one of the few departments or units that are actually working every day. All right? So I would ask you to identify that position, and then we can go back, especially since you have the majority of your workforce at home. That's a perfect example of reworking your workforce so you can have folks can actually, work, right? So, Director, will you please address that and get that squared away, sir?
Sure.
All right. And Internal Order, I would ask you and the Treasurer that position right now, clearly, if they got majority of their work is sitting home, getting paid doing nothing, that it would be reprehensible to hire a person in this position versus when you got everybody else sitting home. So they can move one of their other DPW workers to go help that unit if they really need that help. So I'd ask you to make a note of that, and then we'll address that in the upcoming budget, and we can X out that position at this time, defund it. You got that, Internal Auditor? Internal Auditor, are you acknowledging me?
Treasurer heard it.
Okay, so make a note. Director, I advise you not to hire that person at this time, or position, or whoever it is. It will be defunded in this upcoming budget. So the position will be funded for exactly 30 days, and will be defunded. Okay? And that's a sewer construction worker. Thank you. All right, let's go, Mr. Mancini. You want to go to any questions, Mr. Mancini? Then Mr.
Ready to go. Garage and maintenance, Chairman.
The next, please. Yes, please.
This is Division 101-515. There is no revenue in this department. Based on expenditures as follows: salaries for FY21 are budgeted at $426,129, a decrease of $7,932 from the FY20 budget. This decrease, once again, is due to increased attrition as the city plans to delay posting vacancies and will not be filling non-essential positions in FY21. Benefits for this division are budgeted at $329,556, representing an increase of $8,378 over the prior year budget. Total services at this department will remain level at $156,000, as will total supplies remain level at $40,000. There is no capital expenditures in this department, this division. With your permission, Mr. Chairman, I'll move to the three-box report prepared at the bottom, page 66, top left-hand corner, if you will, showing the FY20 versus FY21 salary. The decrease, as I had indicated in my narrative, of $10,163. Overtime remains level at $3,000 FY21. And longevity has an increase of $2,231. Continuing with that report on page 66, benefits. We'll skip over benefits as that's the purview of the non-departmental. Repairs to auto and trucks has been level funded at $150,000. Likewise, repairs to other equipment level funded at $6,000. Moving down below to lubricants, level funded at $10,000. Down below, tires level funded at $30,000. And that completes the list of expenditures for this division. I'd like to draw your attention to the center boxes as we compare FY20 actual to the FY20 projected. It appears that salaries will exceed budget by $23,610, perhaps not achieving the entire attrition that was expected. Overtime, while budgeted at $3,000, to date there is not an overtime line. I'm sure the controls office will provide a check on that to make sure that there wasn't something that has not been posted, but it appears that it's at zero at the present time. Longevity appears to be slightly above budget at $998. Benefits, once again, are not the purview of the department. Looking at 52912, repairs to orders and trucks. To date, we're expecting that budget will come in at $136,000. There may be some open POs that I'm not aware of at the moment, Mr. Chairman, but by year end, I would expect that this line item will be at or below budget. Likewise, it repairs to other equipment, currently projected at $4,000 against a budget of $6,000. Moving down to lubricants, that line item appears to be projected at $9,975, just shy of the budget of $10,000. Likewise, with tires, that budget is expected to reach $29,992, just shy of the $30,000 budget that was adopted. And there are no other categories of expenditures for review. This completes the presentation of the tree box and the narrative for Division 101-515, garage repair and maintenance. I'll entertain any budget questions or refer them to Mr. Parada.
Director and Mr. Hockman, are you still on the line, sir? All right, well, Director, are you still on the line?
Yes.
All right, so the executed consent decree has, which was executed, about, looks like almost 4 years ago, and it had several milestones the city had to meet. And I would like to have reporting on those milestones. Actually, starting March 31st, 2017, we had a report due. It just goes on and on. By June of 2017, we had another action plan, 6 months of that. June of 2018, June of 2019, December, etc. So there's all these milestones in the consent decree. We'll go one by one, and if you can have Mr. Bombard or whomever has any knowledge or information on this, it can tell us where they are and do they meet the milestones. If not, why not? If I remember correctly, the impact to the city is $25,000 per day per violation. So I'd like to get a handle on whether or not the city is following all that, knowing the limited budget I'm seeing before me and the limited scope of projects that I'm hearing that don't seem to be correlating to what is going on with this consent decree. So you need to prepare tomorrow for that. Madam Clerk, make a note for the Director DPW and whoever has knowledge to present a update on the consent decree. All right. Committee members, do you have any on the garage R&M equipment?
No, Mr. Chair.
So here's another matter. So Mr. Mancini, this unit has about $1 million. It looks like, is that right? Is there a budget? Is that right?
Yeah, but just under $1 million, $951,000, and 1/3 of that is associated with benefits, and half of that is associated with salaries.
So, Mr. Director, can you just give us an idea what the garage R&M equipment, what exactly that is, what it does? What are these? It looks like you have 7 people. Is that right? 7 workers there?
Yeah, you have a shop supervisor. You have another person that's under him, and you have 5 mechanics that do various things. One is a welder, and the others do various repairs to all of our equipment. We have a sizable fleet. Just the vehicles that we use for snow alone, there's 32, 33 vehicles there. Then we have our regular pickups and landscape trucks, as well as trucks that we use every day, and vehicles that we use for environmental and engineering. So We have a sizable fleet for the department, and it has to be maintained on a regular basis. It's aging to some extent, but we're getting some new equipment with the new master lease program, which will help us. But overall, we have to keep up that fleet so that we can do the various projects that are required of us on a daily basis.
So, Mr. Director, I thought there was years past we were talking about consolidating all the, the mechanical shops, from police, fire, stuff, and putting it all in one thing, a little more symmetry between them all. Are we doing that now?
I know that has been an ongoing discussion with the union, but from my knowledge, it has not occurred as of yet. But I know it's a discussion that's happening at higher levels than myself, and it's been ongoing for some time.
So let's talk about, it looks like you have 7 folks there. You got, looks like you have 1 senior mechanic for body repair. You have an equipment maintenance supervisor. You have, looks like 3 senior mechanics. You have a shop supervisor. You have a welder, right? Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that. Where do all the supplies, where are they being held? How does that work? There's supplies for the actual, the tires, the batteries, the oil, the filters, the wipers, all the things that need to be. Do you guys have a supply room?
Yes, we do. For the minor parts, we do stock those. For more major things, we order them as needed. But the basic supplies, whether it be wiper blades or some tires or some incidentals, we do stock those, and we have a stock room. For the more major things, we buy them when necessary.
So how many vehicles in total does this unit handle or responsible for if they break down?
It's a rough guess, but it's over 70 vehicles or somewhere thereabouts. Just, you have various automobiles, cars that we use. They have all the snow equipment right there. That's 32 vehicles, plus the daily vehicles that DPW uses. It's at least that many or more.
All right, and the vehicles, are they all, you said there's 70 of them?
At least.
Right, and where are they all housed? Where are they situated, all 70?
Well, the snow vehicles, they're housed in the cold side of the DPW garage. The daily vehicles that they use are housed on the warm side. The vehicles, the regular cars, they're in the parking lot across the street from 700 Allens Avenue. And we have some in garages below 700 Allens Avenue as well.
Okay. And do you have a laundry list of all the vehicles and the age of them?
We provided that to the internal order in our first submission.
Chilo, do you have that?
No, I'm sorry. What was I looking for?
We're looking for the 70 vehicles. There are 70 vehicles. Have those vehicles, what they are, the age of them, and et cetera, mileage, et cetera?
I do not have that from them yet.
It was submitted to finance at the first meeting, so I'll just have to check with finance to see what happened to it, but it was submitted.
Let me double check.
All right. Okay. All right. And in this particular, we're looking repairs, auto trucks, and other equipment. So it looks like you got approximately about maybe $200,000 out of your budget for supplies. Is that about right? Is that an approximation?
Yeah, given everything with the supplies, lubricants, tires, yep.
Okay, all right. And how do you guys manage your inventory of that? How does that work?
There is a stock room, and the mechanics and the shop supervisors maintain that stock room. They keep the inventory.
Okay. And when was the last time the stock room, does it get inventoried once a week, once a month? How do they maintain the controls of it?
I'll check with the shop supervisor. I'm not sure how often they do that, but they do keep a good inventory of what their supplies are. I'm not sure.
No, I know they keep it. What I'm looking for the accountability, the controls of the inventory. How do they the equipment that comes in, supplies, do they give it a scanning ticket? Is it in the computer? Or are we still doing like, scratch tickets and paper and pencil?
Now, my understanding.
Do they have a modern computer system with a scan code system for the equipment down there?
I don't know if they scan code the equipment, but we can check and see how they do it. But I know it's more modern than slips of paper.
All right. So tomorrow, that'd be another part of reporting tomorrow, if you could give us a sense of what's happening with that aspect, okay? All right. Thank you. And then, do they have enough equipment? That's the other question, so, okay. Any other questions on this matter, committee members? All right, we'll keep rolling. Mr. Mancini, Parking Administration, sir?
Yes, sir. So, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, this division will complete the presentation of the DPW activities. So let's begin with 101, 516 Parking Administration. This, in fact, serves as a revenue-generating department for FY21. The budget has been set at $4.2 million, a decrease of $675,000 from the FY20 budget of $4,875,000. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, you have heard me report earlier on many of these matters, but this revenue reduction is generated. Basically, the revenue is generated from parking meters and permits, but the reduction in this FY21 budget is strictly associated with projections of lost meter revenues due to the anticipated reduction and continuation of lack of demand as a result of COVID-19 conditions. A further discussion of that will take place when we get to the three-box report and its impact already on FY20, which we have been reporting steadily. As to expenditures, salaries for FY21 are budgeted at $207,915, a decrease of $22,715 from the current FY20 budget. Again, the decrease is due to increased attrition as the city plans to delay posting vacancies and will not be filling non-essential positions. Benefits for FY21 are budgeted at $149,129, a decrease of $21,160 from the prior year budget. Services for FY21 are budgeted at $425,000, a decrease of $81,739 from the FY20 budget of $506,793. This decrease is in the lines of maintenance and service, along with private contractors, due to the elimination of monthly lease payments for our Calais parking meters. There are no supplies expense in this category, nor is there any capital expense in this category. With your permission, sir, and members of the committee, I'd like to move now to the three-box report, starting with page 68, and you'll see the various display of parking and parking meter categories. Mr. Chairman, the budget has been reflected for a $675,000 reduction. Let me direct your attention to the center box, and I'm going to show that we're looking at projecting nearly a $1 million or better reduction in current year FY20. Mr. Chairman, we have taken stock of this matter as early as the report that was due a month ago. That's filed monthly with the internal auditor and the city treasurer. This is one of the categories that we knew by our own observation and certainly by the receipted information that has had a COVID-19 impact, no doubt. With less traffic and less socialization coming into the city, whether it's the downtown area or the restaurant area of Atlas Avenue or perhaps East Side, College Hill, those areas that normally draw parking and parking revenue. We have already taken note of that. Mr. Parada, when you get to speak to him, will tell you more specifically the actual reductions on a weekly basis that he has been seeing. And with that, the finance department has taken that and heeded that amount. And we have projected that not only as a diminished revenue through the end of FY20, but we felt that because of that behavioral activity, restaurants and other retail and locations would still be hampered into the summer. we're actually thinking that it would have impact into at least the first quarter of the new budget. So that's the reflection of that, Mr. Chairman. And this is one of those categories that we truly believe has been affected by COVID-19. If you like, I will continue with the expense categories on page 69, and then we can come back to the discussion predominantly on revenues.
Yes.
So with your permission, Mr. Chairman, page 69, we'll look at the left-hand box and show that salaries have a reduction of $14,084 for the year. Overtime is expected and asked to be held at level funding at $5,000. And longevity for the year will not exist, as there will be no payment of longevity in this division because Mr. Parada was the former parking administrator, and since his elevation and promotion to director, this department no longer has a person that will be working, or at least when it does get filled, they will not be a person who is eligible for longevity at this time. Benefits is the purview of the non-departmental. Maintenance and services is a reduction of $20,000 over the prior year budget, set at $50,000, as well as private contractors is a reduction of $61,793. This is in the area of meters and meter repair. And that completes the budget review for 20 over 21. If I could direct your attention, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, to the center boxes, and we can have a discussion associated with the current budget and where we project that budget to be. So we expect that salaries will have a reduction of $57,291. Once again, this is a reflection of Mr. Parada being at first appointed acting and now permanent director, and his salary reduction, his salary non-payment in this division is reflected there as well. Overtime is within budget. We expect it to be at or below budget, as well as longevity will be at or below budget in this division. Moving past benefits, we look at maintenance and service. We expect that account will finish up close to 48, perhaps 50,000, but still below budget for the year. Likewise, on the private contractors, once again, with the reduced activity in parking and parking administration and management, we expect that category will finish below budget as well. And so, Mr. Chairman, we round that category out. So if there's any offset to it of a potential $1 million in non-recognized or non-receipt of revenue, we might see an offsetting $100,000 in non-payment of vendor-related expenses. But nonetheless, Mr. Chairman, still a risk to the city budget for FY20. I'm willing to take questions at this time from yourself or members of the committee or the council, or defer to Mr. Parada as Department Director. Thank you.
So just as a quick, we have to step back for a moment. Mr. Parada, in the Public Works garage maintenance equipment laundry list, you have 7 workers. Can you, I want to go down the list, by the way, who's working, who's not. Is the body repair senior mechanic coming to work every day?
They're all coming to work every day, every single one of them.
Were they always coming to work every day, or you just mean this week they started?
No, they started at least last week or the week before. They were alternating. Now it's, as of last week, it's every day.
So then when I went through the laundry list of the other department, when I asked them if they come and worked every day, I'll ask you the same question. Were they coming to work every day just beginning this week?
No, as I said earlier, it was started last week.
So last week you did the alternative, and then everybody's back to work, DPW is back to work?
No. So the highway division is back to work pretty much full. Mechanics are full. The administrative offices, they alternate, but the highway division, sewer division, they're full.
Okay. Okay, so the highway you said division is, right?
Right.
Okay. Does that mean include the highway and bridge maintenance division? They're full? I mean that division? I'm sure I'm getting the right name.
Yeah, everything that falls under the highway division, right?
So the highway bridge maintenance, the 42 workers, they're all back working full time this week, right?
Yep.
Yes. Is that you saying yes?
Yes.
All 42, so the entire system's up and running. Councilman Taylor?
Let me unmute myself. Chairman, I just was going through my notes, and I don't know if I mentioned this before we get out of Public Works. Under Public Works Administration, I would recommend taking out the Deputy Director of Public Works position and the funding, because there is no Deputy Director in that position.
Okay. There's
Just
no
wanna
one in
put
that position right
There was a
So,
person,
Madam-
but as we saw, I guess the person was terminated, so.
Madam Auditor, can you address that in the, for the proposed budget cuts, the upcoming weeks?
Yep, I got it.
Thank you.
So that'll be in, it's the Deputy Director of Public Works, is that right?
Yeah, it's under the administration part. I should have caught it before, but I just left me a note. It's called Deputy Director of Public Works under the Public Works Administration.
Great, all right. Madam Clerk, please make a note of that. And Madam Auditor? All right. Okay. So let's go to the parking administration unit. There's two folks there, right? Director?
Yes, right now there is two people. There's one vacancy, not including the parking administrator. So the parking administrator's position is vacant, and there's one parking meter maintenance person position that is also vacant. Someone retired just last January.
So do we have a contractor who handles that, right?
No,
We don't have a contractor. We don't have a contracting company that actually. No, do we own those meters outright and we maintain them?
Yep.
I'm sorry?
Yes, we own them all. We don't have a contract. With the only contract we have with the meter companies is to pay the licensing fee or the fee so that we can process the credit card payments, and also to see the back office so that we can actually see whether a meter is functioning or not functioning. They do not, we do not have a contract with them in terms of leasing or anything like that. I believe our last lease payment was this past year. We own all the meters.
Madam Auditor, there's an empty position at now, the parking administrator position. It's vacant at this time. So why don't we, the upcoming budget discussions, make that as an additional cut to the budget, okay?
Okay.
Madam, all right? So we'll remove that position too, okay? So, Director, and everybody's asking, I'm just wondering, where is the 30% cuts that the administration asked you to make? And then I have Councilwoman Vice Chair Ryan. Where are those cuts? Where are the 30% cuts?
I believe this is the budget that was originally submitted to the administration.
Okay. So, Madam Auditor, have we received all the department heads proposed 30% cuts that were submitted to the administration?
No, sir, I haven't received any.
Okay. So, Mr. Mancini, I think I've asked this already once. I guess I'll ask it every week until we get it. And I think in order for us to understand where it's going. So, Mr. Mancini, can you please forward those proposed 30% cuts from all the department heads to the administration that was submitted to the administration to the internal auditor, please, sir?
I can, sir, and where they exist, I'll be happy to pass them along. Yep.
Thank you. All right. Okay. Vice Chair?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you. I'm just looking back in my list of requests. Did we ever get a list? It's very hard to keep track of the vacant positions, vacant funded positions. Did we ever get a list? I know we asked for, just one list of vacant funded positions. Do we have that in one place as opposed to looking at it holistically, organizational chart by organizational chart? As well as I had asked for a list of essential versus non-essential by departments. I haven't seen that yet either.
So do we have that? I know that's been asked, Mr. Mancini. Do we have those lists yet?
I believe the auditor already has a list of positions that are vacant, whether they were submitted by the administration through HR. I don't know if finance assembles that list. That's really under the direction of Department of Human Resources. But if she doesn't have it, I will work with HR to get it to her.
Please, I just
What
think
about,
it's helpful.
what
Thank
about essential and non-essential, right, Vice Chair?
Yes.
Once again, Mr. Chairman, I believe that's under the purview of the Department of Human Resources. I know they've been sharing at the request of the committee and the treasurer as a regular updated list of essential versus non-essential employees.
So my
Thank you.
point, Mr. Chair, is that we go through these line items, department by department. It's adding up. I'm trying to keep my notes here. It would be very helpful if the administration could provide us with some running lists of vacant funded positions, essential versus non-essential by department. It would help us as we review these budgets.
Thank you. Madam Auditor, can you please expedite that request?
I have a request. I sent a letter to the administration, and I did CC City Council on various questions, and one of my questions was vacant funded positions. I have not received a response yet from that May 5th letter.
Okay, so that HR would provide that, Mr. Mancini, is that what you're saying?
It would, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Madam Clerk, who's the HR person? Madam Clerk? Anybody know? Mr. Mancini, who's the HR person?
Director Emmanuel Echevarria.
Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Can I also, another comment I'd like to say, I had requested directly from HR some information about workers' comp employees and as far as what departments they belong to. And apparently everything has to go through finance. So that is why some of my spreadsheets do not include all of the employees. So although he's saying HR, it has to flow through finance anyway.
I see. So what we'll do is, when is HR coming before this committee, Madam Clerk or Auditor? Do you know when the HR is coming before this committee?
They're scheduled for Wednesday.
Okay, so Mr. Mancini, since I believe you're in charge of that unit also, please have that individual provide that information to the auditor by tomorrow, or Wednesday will be a long night for the individual.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, technical correction, HR does not fall under the direction of finance.
Who does he fall under?
HR is one of those departments that falls under the Chief of Operations, Sabrina Solaris.
All right, so I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to get caught up. Internal auditor, and and then I have the treasurer. Okay, treasurer, you go. Go ahead, treasurer.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just following up on the council doing a resolution to answer those questions. I don't believe those questions were ever answered. And I know that the auditor's questions were not answered as well, going back to May 5th.
Thank you,
so,
Lottie.
You're welcome.
So, Madam Auditor, I would then, if you want, reach out to the Director of HR, remind them they're coming on Wednesday, and they need to be prepared to provide you information prior to that day. Okay? And I would ask Mr. Cheverini, the solicitor, are you on the phone, sir?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Could you then reach out to the HR director and remind them that they have an obligation to provide that information to the internal auditor and be prepared for Wednesday? Will you reach out to them? I mean, in lieu of the fact that the HR director is looking for this council to give them money to pay their salaries, it's probably best if they work with the internal auditor. And then I would suggest that if they don't comply, the HR would then further delay the budget process by not providing the requested information to the internal auditor. Because
Absolutely.
as long as they keep that information from the legislative branch of government, the longer it will take for the legislative branch of government to act on the budget. So that would be the hook for the finance division to make sure that the HR division follows and the requested internal auditor. So it gives you guys, Mr. Silvera, Mr. Mancini, some skin in the game, that it's in your best interest also to contact them and ask them to comply with the internal auditor's request, so we can keep on moving forward with these budget discussions. So I'd ask Mr. Mancini, Mr. Silvera, to acknowledge that at this time. Mr. Mancini?
Yep.
Silvera? Silvera?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
All right. So you have skin in the game to get the auditor, the HR director to comply with the internal auditor's request. All right, let's keep rolling. Any question about the parking administration? Any additional questions, folks?
Not at this time.
So thank you, Vice Chair. Just very quickly, so Mr. Mancini, just for the sake of conversation, the parking administration budget, the total of, on page 69 of 154. The last Department of Public Works, is that at this time it was budgeted 18.8 mil, is that right? Am I reading this correctly?
That is correct.
You spent 18.6, and then your proposed budget is 19.9, 20 million.
That's correct.
Okay. So, Mr. Director, clearly your budget has not gone down by 30%. In fact, it's actually increased. So that seems to be a misnomer, what's happening. We're not necessarily looking to cut the budget, but we need to understand what's happening in that budget process. Can you remember, do you have any more questions?
Chairman, may I add that across the city, of course, there's been increases in costs associated with pension and medical as well, and that's reflected in the budget.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you, Mr. Mancini.
Thank you, sir.
Let's see. Madam Auditor, do you have any questions?
I would just like clarification on the revenue for the parking administration, Leo. The Cali meters is driven by the meter checkers. Is that accurate?
What was that? I didn't catch the last part of that question.
Is the revenue from the Cali meters driven by the meter checkers who work out of the police department?
Well, yeah, they work in, basically, if you don't have enforcement or if you have a lack of enforcement, there's going to be a reduction in people paying. The good portion of the reason why people are not paying right now is obviously the students are gone, restaurants and most businesses are closed. So that's the biggest reason why there's a reduction in revenue. But there are still people parking on the street, albeit much less. And some of those people do pay, but without enforcement, we probably can get more of them to pay. But how much more? Okay. I'm not sure. It's the biggest reasons why are no students, restaurants closed, business closed. That is by far the biggest reason.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So then, we have additional deliverables for DPW for tomorrow night, right, Madam Clerk?
Yes.
All right, Mr. Director, do you know, then we have Councilman Taylor. Director, are you aware of the deliverables for tomorrow?
Yep, we'll have everything. I'll have Mr. Bombard prepare everything. We'll be ready for tomorrow night.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Taylor?
Just one thing, where does those giving meters fall under? Not that many of them,
Director?
but where do those giving meters fall under?
The revenue does not show up in this account. I'd have to speak with operations. I believe they account for that money.
Okay. Any other questions on this matter? All right, so we'll follow up with DPW tomorrow. Madam Clerk, do we make just a notation to say we motion to continue DPW discussions to tomorrow? Is that how we do it? All right?
So moved.
All right.
Second.
By Vice Chair Taylor. Discussion? All in favor? Motion carries unanimously. So, Mr. Mancini, what's up next, Leah?
It's either Department of Planning or Office of Economic Opportunity. I don't have my agenda right in front of me. Can the clerk guide me on that?
Why don't we do the Department of Planning and Development? If we can do one thing, let's just stand at ease for one moment, all right, Madam Clerk? Stand at ease for a moment and just, come here, please. No, just cover the. All right, folks, we're going to be back on the record. My committee members here?
I am.
So what I'm going to do is, because as you know, it's getting late in the evening, so we're going to take on planning and development. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look for the committee to make a motion to continue the Office of Economic Opportunity till tomorrow, to the next finance meeting. And we'll get to them because it just, we'll be here. It's just, we're getting at the bewitching hour.
So moved.
So
Second.
just make a motion. Motion by Vice Chair to continue the Office of Economic Opportunity to the next finance meeting, which is tomorrow. Second by Councilman Taylor. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. So Ms. Fonseca, she doesn't have to wait for another couple of hours or whatever it is, all right? Or whoever's involved, right? So Mr. Mancini, shall we take up the next division?
Yes.
You have to call, where is it? Does he have an exhibit? Just click there and and where's the stuff that Gina's supposed to have for me? Okay. And, Mr. Solicitor?
Yes, sir.
I read a briefly on your opinion about the tax assessor issue. Do you want to, you're going to follow up with that, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much you read of it, but or how quickly, but I was specifically directed to see or look into the fact when there are renovations being done. I think your concern, I think in Councilwoman Anthony's were, when you have an inspector, a tax assessor person come out and they're looking at the renovations, can they go through the whole house and start going, oh my God, there's new windows up there that wasn't part of the renovation? And based upon my review, they can't extend that look on the renovations to going in the basement to see if you did any work in the basement or anywhere else. They're limited to the renovation.
Mr. Sherman, I think that's what we need to make sure is expressed, because I think we don't know what they're doing. I just don't want to make sure they're not doing something to follow the law. You're okay?
I will certainly review.
I want you to have a conversation. Have you and the owner have a conversation with them, okay? Let us know. Okay. Mr. Mancini, what we're going to do is I guess you enter into the record, is it B10?
It is B10.
All right. Is that right, Mr. Mancini? So I got to enter into the record as Exhibit B10 by Vice Chair. Yep, and it's identified as 101-908, Planning and Urban Development, multi-page document. Second by Councilman Taylor. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimous. Thank you. All right, so Mr. Mancini, do you have the mic, sir? Do you want to take us through your B10, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Before you this evening is 101-908, Department of Planning and Development. This is not a revenue-generating department, and therefore I will move directly to expenditures. Salaries for FY21 are expected to decrease by $102,583, basically representing the same issue as previously discussed. Any attrition associated with the non-filling of non-essential positions will be reflected in that matter. Benefits for the FY21 are expected to increase by $52,105 over the prior year. And as we move into administrative services, Mr. Chairman, that group of services will increase by, pardon me, I don't have my summary in front of me. That entire group of services will increase by $1,200, which includes rental of land and buildings, an increase of $14,822. And as we move to services will decrease, by $169,378. Supplies will stay the same at $10,300, and there is no capital associated with this department. Before we go into the three-box report, Mr. Chairman, I could direct your attention to the three-box report on page 44 and 45. Once again, salaries will decrease by $104,424. Overtime will have an increase of $3,700 over the prior year. Longevity will have a decrease of $1,859. Benefits are not the purview of the department. Other services will have a decrease of $2,000. Postage has an increase of $1,800. Advertising and marketing will stay the same at $10,000. Dues and subscriptions will stay the same at $3,500. And printing will have a decrease of $1,000 over the prior year. Repairs to office equipment will be level funded at $3,500. Rental of land and buildings based on contractual change in the lease will have an increase of $14,822. Rental of equipment will have a decrease of $9,000. Travel will decrease by $4,000. Miscellaneous and professional services will decrease by $45,000. If I could direct your attention to page 45, miscellaneous expenses will stay the same at $7,500. The Public Building Authority expense will decrease by $125,000 from the prior year, and office supplies will remain the same at $10,300. Returning back to page 44 and focusing on the center box, it appears that salaries for the department will have a $172,245 above budget based on more than likely attrition not being met in the budget. Overtime has a over budget of $3,699. Longevity is within budget at a $1,507 amount above the budget, I should say. Benefits not the purview of the department for review. Other services will show a decrease of $12,852 projected for the year. Postage is projected to be at budget. Advertising and marketing is projected to be at or below budget at $9,436. Dues and subscriptions has a slight overage at $852, while printing is within budget at $3,485. Repairs to office equipment is below budget by $2,157. Rental of land and buildings is at budget. And rental of equipment is below budget by around $4,484. Travel is below budget by $7,723. And miscellaneous professional services is projected to be at $184,334 or $15,666 below budget. Moving to page 45, center box, miscellaneous expenses are expected to come in at $3,696 below budget. And then finally, the Public Building Authority expense is expected to be $112,500 below the current budget. And we'll explain that when we get to that line item. The Public Building Authority expenses, Mr. Chairman, have stabilized. And so this year, we were able to accomplish the payment of those expenses that generally represent legal and some professional services. And so to the credit of the department, they were able to staff the Public Building Authority requirements and had made a recommendation that for next year, they would recommend that amount be reduced by $125,000, representative of what activity has occurred this year. Office supplies will probably be below budget at $9,688, and that completes the report under the three-box department planning. And I will entertain any questions from myself or Director Nickerson who's with us this evening.
Hello, committee members, do you have any questions? Councilman Taylor?
Yes, I have one question. How much was
Yes,
the
sir.
cost? How much did it cost the city for the Slow Streets program? And when are what was the cost and what did that money buy?
Okay.
Sure.
Director?
Sure. So the cost, it's hard to pinpoint the exact cost. The costs were borne by several different departments, the Parks Department, DPW, and the Planning Department. The piece that fell under our budget was primarily the special signs that we had fabricated. And the piece that fell under DPW and Parks were the additional barricades that were required to put up at the various locations throughout the city. Just noting that the barricades came in two different types of barricades. One was procured by the Parks Department, one was procured by DPW. And those barricades are able to be reused for a number of functions that happen around the city. For example, as the testing sites for COVID-19 are set up, many of those barricades are being used to support that work. So they get utilized for a number of different things. So the only expense that's really specific and particular and limited to the Slow Streets program is really the signage that was specific to this program that had information about slow streets. We also had signs that had just a 10 mile per hour. Again, those can be reused for other purposes. So I would say it would be limited to the signage. And I think we may, Sally, I don't know if you have that number in front of you.
Yes,
Sally, do you happen
it's around
to have that
$3,000 that
number
we
in front of you, the signage?
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's 3,000 because I was
Yes.
reading. I read in the paper, and the paper's not always right, but they said 15,000. Was that for the barricades and the signs?
Correct.
Okay, so
That was for the barricades that are reused throughout the city for other purposes as well.
okay, so It costs us $3,000 for the signs. So my first question was, we have a traffic and engineering. Why didn't they make the signs?
We actually did.
They have a sign department. So why?
Yeah, we did talk to DPW first, and the turnaround time that we needed for the specialty signs, they weren't able to meet that time frame. So we did go out. We did go out outside of the city for those signs.
Okay, and I'm going to be frank now. I think it was a poor design of this slow street program. When that went up, my phones, and probably my colleagues can say the same. Several people called. Actually, one lady who lives on Waverly Street was an elderly lady, and she was panicked enough with the COVID, and she asked me, because she saw me putting the numbers on my Facebook page and yada, yada, yada. And she was very concerned, saying, wow, how do they pinpoint, by the whatchamacallit? And I said, no, because the address. I said, no, they don't do the address. They do by zip code. And she was very concerned that Waverly Street had so many cases. That's why they closed the street down. I told her that's not the point. That's, they closed the street down for safe streets. She didn't understand. Plus, there was many people that nothing went out to the people who lived on those streets. They had no clue why that street was closed. The Jersey barriers now are like knocked over. It's a good, I tell people to go for a driver's test. It works good on the street because you can go in and out of the barriers that are knocked all over the place, because it's just, it wasn't, my opinion, it wasn't thought out. And it's still not thought out. There was nobody using it, the streets, I stand corrected. The people using the streets on the first warm day were the ATVs and the dirt bikes. They thought they had a street for themselves. So I would hope at some point, if we do this again, that we let the constituents know what exactly is going on, why the streets are closed, when they're going to be closed, when they're open. I mean, the barriers are still there. There's people going up and down the street. They're knocked over, like I said. And I don't understand. I don't understand the theory of it, number one, but I also don't understand why we spent extra money for it when the city is strapped for money and we don't need any extra money being spent on frivolous things, my opinion.
Director?
I hear the discussion. I hear the feedback. If there's a specific question, I'm happy to address it.
Well, I guess my first question is, why didn't you come to the council and let us know, obviously, what was going on and what streets are being closed? Because I found out by looking in the paper. That's question number one. Question two is, why didn't things go out to the
Chief, let him answer that first question first.
Okay.
Director, can you answer that question?
Yeah, sure. So we were working closely with the administration, and I know that the administration's liaison to the council had that information, and I believe briefed council members.
I didn't get briefed. I don't know if anybody else
I completely understand that briefing happened perhaps later than the council would have preferred, but that was the decision between the administration and the council liaison. My duty in crafting the program was to advise on which streets should be included in the program and advise the administration on what's happening with how cities are addressing the COVID-19 crisis around the United States, as well as in cities around the world. And so I was briefing the administration in that capacity, and their coordination and ongoing collaboration with the council is that those decisions are made by the administration and that team.
Well, I can go on record and say the administration didn't let me know about it. I don't know about my colleagues. My second question would be, why didn't you notify the people that lived on that street, either by a mailer or something, why the streets were closed? So I wouldn't have had that elderly person and many others. But I mean, the elderly person, I kind of laughed at it, but she was very serious. She's like 90 years old. And she thought the street was so had so many cases of COVID-19. That's why it was closed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's as you noted, the two aren't directly related in terms of where cases were and where the proposed streets were identified. We did have a team of volunteers, so I believe the mayor announced the program on a Wednesday. We had a team of volunteers Thursday and Friday going out to each corridor and flyering, putting up notices and handing notices in mailboxes and mail slots and we attempted to reach everyone. We did discuss doing a mailer, and the time and expense associated with doing the mailer, I think was just out of sync with the time and the allowable budget for the project. And so we opted to go walking each corridor with flyers explaining the program, how you can find out more information, what the purpose was, et cetera, and when it would be out.
And also, did you figure out that the overtime that it was going to cost for DPW and parks to go out and put those barriers out on a weekend?
I apologize. I had a brief pause. I didn't hear the question.
Did you figure out the overtime that it was going to cost and is going to cost, because they're still out there, the barriers, that they went and had to put them out on a weekend, the DPW and Parks Department?
Yeah, we have a call the entire operations team for this project with DPW, Parks, operations, and the police, everyone who's involved. And we did discuss the costs associated and the pros and cons of rolling it out at different times of day and which crews were available at different times and at different days. And so those decisions were made to maximize the teams that were available at the dates and the times by the Parks Department as well as by DPW. And they do have crews that normally are out on the weekends. And so we were able to utilize those crews. And in some cases, there may have been limited overtime that was granted, though I don't have those specifics in front of me.
And when does this end? Because there's still, I know in my ward, like I said, they're knocked over, they're on the sidewalk. Yeah. People put them out there and they knock them over again. When does this slow street initiative end?
Yeah,
or has it ended?
Sure. It is currently active. We have volunteers that go out to the corridors each day. For most of the barricades, we have put up sandbags to help stabilize them. It's been kind of challenging weather-wise, so there was a lot of wind for a number of days, and so the barricades, I think, were being pushed around by the weather as well. So we've added sandbags to most of those sites, and again, we have volunteers out on the corridors each day, trying to make sure that they are stabilized and in the right location so that the drivers, walkers, and bikers can all view the signage. And it is temporary, so it is aligned with the COVID-19 crisis and the adjustments that we are all making. As we hear quite a bit in the news, there's a lot of demand for the very limited public space that we have. This is becoming an issue now with allowing restaurants to have outdoor space. How do we accommodate for that in a way that still maintains the safe distancing that's required? So it's temporary, but it aligns with the crisis that we have in front of us and how to maximize public space for people to maintain the distance that is required to be safe.
And again, I will comment and say public space, I don't think was thought out. The governor opened up parks. Unfortunately, the administration closed parks. They're still closed as far as parking. We're paying, I know in Roger Williams Park, 6 details per weekend, 6 police cars sit in the park and make sure that people don't park. Also, they're at other parks like Dexter Training Ground. There's only one. But I think this whole initiative, this whole rollout of everything, I'd love to know the cost at the end of 6. I mean, we don't have enough police on the streets, and we have 6 people sitting in the park telling them not to park. You can't park in the park, where the governor said that there is parking, and we didn't pass his executive order, the mayor. So I don't get it. I don't know how much money we're spending. And I think, and then you go and mention that, we got to get sandbags. So again, how much does that cost? You know what I mean? So I'd love to see the end result of how much this costs to have people walk on the streets, and they don't, and they're not walking on the streets. Like I said, the SUVs and the dirt bikes are using it. They think it's an open road for them. So I would hope next time that either don't rely on the administration, is my point, to let us know, the council, you're the director of planning. Make sure you talk. I'm on the PRA. Mary Kay's on PRA. Reach out to us. Let us know so we can let our colleagues know that, hey, you know what? We didn't know about it. Instead of all the phone calls that we had to take, because the administration didn't take any calls, because you call City Hall, they don't even have call forwarding. So we were taking calls, scrambling. And I'm only speaking for me. I know my colleagues receive calls for either the street, obviously because the streets that were closed on the east side and other places, they got so many calls that they canceled that street and moved it to another street. So if they moved it to another, when you moved it to another street, did you notify those people that were on that street? You know, so I think it was a terrible rollout. And you know, I would, if I'm a guessing man, I'd say it's probably the whole thing probably cost us like probably a couple $100,000 between overtime and everything that we've done. And for no reason really, because we could have just followed the governor's rule and open up the parks and let the people walk, because that's what they wanted in the first place. Thank you.
Well, Councilman, then you have a question about the, you said, what happened, Councilman Taylor mentioned about the east side. He said you identified the streets, you closed the street, then you reopened it and then moved it to another street. Director, can you explain what happened there, please?
Sure. There was one street segment on the east side. I believe this is the one that the councilman is referring to on Camp Street. So there's a very long segment that included part of Camp Street north of Doyle Avenue. And that segment.
That's the one that was, Director, that's the one that was in the newspaper? That was in the one in the newspaper with the business owner, right?
Yeah, there was a business owner.
You guys, right? And she was on the front page talking about this program and how it was impacting her. Is that correct? Same street?
That's the business owner I'm referring to.
So then what happened? You moved to that business owner, and then you guys opened up the street, then you moved it to another street. Is that what you're saying?
No, we didn't move it to another street. We just scaled back that the length of that segment because there was such a concern. And I believe the councilwoman shared some concern about that particular. We didn't relocate it. We just scaled back that segment.
Okay. All right. Committee members have questions on this?
Yes, I do.
Vice Chair?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So that's in Councilman Anthony's ward, is that Camp Street? Is that?
Councilwoman LaFortune's ward.
Councilwoman LaFortune, okay. So how about, I originally saw Blackstone Boulevard was on the original plans as a slow street. What happened with that? Because that changed from the first introduction.
It didn't change.
Memo that we received. Thank you.
Oh, sure. So there were a few street segments that were in discussion that ultimately never got rolled out. And Blackstone Boulevard was one of those street segments that ultimately did not get rolled out on that first day, that Saturday that we launched. In part because there was some discussion about if we were to reopen the center walking path there, that would suffice in terms of the need for social distancing and safe spacing for people being outside. And also the one of the key indicators that we use to select the street segments was where we have population density and limited access to individual space outside. So for example, where do we have the most dense residential areas with the fewest number of yards? And that's one of the focuses that we wanted to take citywide was looking at that. And so ultimately Blackstone Boulevard, though it is a long segment and sort of fits from a geometry point of view and adjacent to the to the Parkway doesn't really fit when we looked at it through that lens, because there are many folks in that area that have individual yard space to safely be outside. And it is, as you all know, in R1 area, which is kind of our lowest residential density area. So it ultimately didn't seem to meet kind of the intent of the program.
So it was removed.
Vice Chair?
Yeah,
It
just
was-
following up, Mr. Chair. So it was removed from the program.
It was never launched. So on the day that we launched it, it was not included.
Okay.
Yeah, but Director,
Yeah.
I think the question is, you're both losing, the Vice Chair's using the R word, you're using the L word. She said it wasn't removed, and you said it was never launched. So was it part of the original program, yes or no? We'll start off that first.
So like I said, there were a few streets that
No,
were being
Director,
considered. Yeah.
Director, stop.
Yep.
Was it part of the original program, yes or no? It's a simple question, yes or no?
It was part of the original streets that were identified, yes.
So yes, it was. And therefore, as you said, it wasn't launched, so therefore it was removed and was not applied. You guys did not close it, correct?
That's right.
Okay, so now, and what you said, you made your statement that based on one of the matrix, which was most dense area with few yards, right? And then originally it fell into that pattern, and then you didn't launch it, as you said, which means it was removed, for lack of a better term, and was not done. Instead, they opened up the boulevard walking path, right? Walking trail back and forth in the middle. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so now that is maintained by the Parks Department and considered a city park.
That's correct.
So what the city did was they opened Blackstone Boulevard Park for those folks, right? And then kept the parks closed for, let's say, the people on the other side of the tracks closed.
No,
Like
that's not true.
in my neck of the woods, they kept the park closed. Oh, yes, they did.
Well, I just
Okay.
want to
So
note that on the Saturday,
Director, yes, they did. They
Okay.
kept the parks closed. And so the other side, so I just want to make sure we understand what's going on here. So, and now you talk about density. And if I may dovetail, Vice Chair, may I ask a question?
Please,
Vice Chair?
absolutely, go ahead.
Go ahead.
So you said that. You guys chose, you chose Moorfield Street in my neck of the woods. Moorfield Street, you said the criteria was the most dense area, few yard space. At the end, both ends of basically Moorfield Street, one of the ends of Moorfield Street is basically 100 acres of woods and parks. It's called the New Connecticut Park, right?
Yep.
And Moorfield Street is one of my streets in my neighborhood that has basically all single-family homes with yards, and it's probably the least dense street. But yet, under your criteria, you chose to ignore those elements and you shut Moorfield Street down, which doesn't make any sense. So, and meanwhile, there was a park right at the end. So they had yard space, it wasn't the most dense street, and yet you closed it down. So that, your criteria doesn't jive. It doesn't make any sense. So and I'm gonna go step back before you answer that question, because I'm sure you're gonna have a very eloquent and explanation. Can you explain to me, what was the genesis of this program? When did it begin? Who started it? Was it your department said, hey, I got an idea, let's shut down streets? Who came up with this idea, first of all? Let's start at the beginning.
Oh, sure. Yes, our department came up with the concept of it for the city of Providence, though I can't take credit for coming up with the idea of how to share space. And I think it's important that we're clear that when we say whether it was opened or closed, the streets were never closed. What the intent is to slow traffic down and reduce cut-through traffic on those particular street segments and allow.
Madam Director, I appreciate the nuance in your argument. I appreciate it, all right? But let's just say this. You're being factual, but not really honest. So let's take a step back. Let's talk about the people who live there. Let's go back. So your division, your planning department came up with this idea, and the genesis came from you folks in reaction to what? Was it just something you guys were working on for many months, many years, or was it in reaction to something? Which one was it?
It's in direct response to the COVID-19 crisis.
Great, thank you. Next question is, can you explain the criteria, since you guys made this COVID-19 health analysis? Can you tell me why would it be safer for my constituent to walk in their street, right, versus walk in 100 acres of a park with walking tracks, you know, and spacing and all that stuff? So tell me, was there some medical statistic that showed COVID-19 only attacked people in park areas and not in street areas? Because I'm trying to understand that, because if you walk 6 feet apart in a street and you walk 6 feet apart in a park, is it the park environment which further enhances the COVID-19 crisis? Is that what happens? Can you explain to me what's the difference between the park that creates that enhances COVID-19, and if I'm walking 6 feet apart in COVID-19 in the park with a mask versus walking in the street with a mask and 6 feet apart? So what happens in the park? Is it trees that create and does it amplify COVID-19? The trees, the grass. What amplifies the problem? Can you please explain that?
Sure.
And if you can't, fine.
So I can't speak to the difference. I don't believe there is a difference, and you're stating a pretty rational argument. There'd be no difference whether you're walking outside on a street or walking outside on a path. I just wanted to address a statement that you had made a few minutes ago, which was on the day that we launched the Slow Streets program, which was that Saturday, a number of city parks opened for pedestrian access that same day. So I believe it was 8 or 9 city parks around the city that opened the same day for pedestrian access for those same reasons, so that people had adequate space outside to walk, to jog, whatever you need to do with your family groupings in a way that could be safely socially distanced. And so the intent wasn't to pick one type of space over another, but the intent was to increase the overall amount of space that was available, because as you know, a number of residents do not live within a 5 or 10 minute walk of one of these park spaces. So it was really meant to provide as many people as possible with opportunities to safely be outside.
So would it have still been easier to open up the parks themselves, and just open up all the parks first, and apply? By the way, and I think we mentioned, by the way, the past month, the council had this conversation where we said, actually, it's a good opportunity for a health education initiative, which is a person comes to the park, you can hand them masks, you can tell them about what's going on, how the process works, take 6 feet apart, and this way you can actually do in a controlled environment, and the police officers can be there to help, remind people, or the health workers, et cetera, et cetera. We just opened up our parks and did that first, because you closed on the streets for the walking, we still didn't have the health initiative there either. So I didn't, that didn't make any sense. So wouldn't it be better just to first open the parks first and further cause greater anxiety by closing down someone's street? Did anybody think of that? Councilman Taylor's right on that one. Did anybody think of the anxiety that would be caused?
I hear what you're saying. I think everyone has a different response. A lot of people with young children and others are grateful to have cars slow down on their residential street. 10 miles an hour is a very slow pace, as anyone who drives knows that's very slow. And so many families are happy to have that speed reduction.
I got a question for you. When this whole thing hit for the past 2 months, have you been actually on the streets? Prior to this week, there was no one driving, so I don't even know what traffic you're talking about. Basically, traffic on the major highways dropped by 60% nationally. So can you please tell me what traffic everybody was talking about? Because in the height of this thing, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, everybody was in their home. No one was driving a car because there's no
Right.
place to go. So what do you guys keep on talking about this traffic? What traffic are you talking about?
Well,
Because it didn't
that's frank.
exist.
Yeah, no, frankly, I think that's a very good point. That's exactly why this was a good time to launch this type of initiative, because the number of cars on the road is significantly reduced to begin with. But we wanted to preserve access to individual driveways, to emergency vehicles, and things along those lines. But to your point, most people, even today, aren't out driving around. And so the number of cars on the road was already reduced significantly, and that was part of the reason why it made sense to launch the initiative.
So Councilman Taylor has a follow-up question. Councilman?
Yes. So we had the commissioner ahead of the finance committee, and we asked him if he was on the planning committee, and he said yes, and kind of basically directed that you were the one, planning development was the one who started it. Who were the other people that were at this besides the administration and yourself and the commissioner? Who else was there at these planning meetings to say, hey, this is what we want to do?
Which other city departments? Is that your question? Okay,
Yeah.
so DPW, Parks Department, Police, and the operations chief in the administration, and their associated divisions. So the park superintendent would be there, and then invite whoever from her team she thought was should be part of the conversation. Same with DPW. So there were various divisions from each of the departments that I mentioned, but that was the core team that met regularly on this.
So you had the chief of staff was there too for the mayor?
Yes.
Okay, so you had 10 or 12 people at the first meeting to kick it off. Wouldn't you think that it would be good, even if it's not a council person, to have our chief of staff there, or to have our deputy chief of staff or someone there, so they could add their input and say, hey, you know what? I can see this being a problem if we close down X, Y, and Z street because there's a coffee shop on it, or you know what I mean? Like,
right.
The reason I say this, I relate it to the fire department. When we used to have, like, we'd have a fire and then we critique the fire. We'd have the people who went to the fire. We'd have the police there. We'd have, whoever showed up, but we never had communications. And that's where that's where all the calls came in. So
right.
And I was in communications. So, we could say, hey, listen, we received 20 calls on it, or why did we only send 2 engines and a ladder? And they'd always hammer communications. But then I could always go and say, hey, but I wasn't invited. Go and say, well, we only got 1 call on it, and it was report of smoke in the area. I didn't know it was, we didn't know it was a 3-alarm fire. So I think, like I said before, I think someone from, even if it wasn't a council person, the chief of staff or someone from the council office, the chief of staff would have been the best bet. That's why I asked the chief of staff administration, because we have, and that's what as being a councilman, that I see that people forget, and even on all the what is it? The word I'm looking for. We'll list all the people on the that people send in.
The org chart.
The what?
The organizational chart.
The organizational chart. Yes, thank you very much. I don't even know. I didn't check yours, but the organizational chart for police, fire, commissioner, and I know the chairman told them last year. Hey, you know what? It's the mayor, and then, well, I'm looking at yours. We're not on it either. But it's like the mayor, and it's, then the director, and then it goes down. But in between the mayor and the director is the legislative branch, which is us, the city council. And we are always forgotten. I don't know why. Everybody comes through the finance to get money, to do this, to do that. They remember us then. But when it comes down, even human relations, human resource, when they put out who essential people were, that, taking my hat off to Councilman Correa, Pro Tem Correa, that he had to actually put in and say, we are essential people, and we're equal to the mayor. It's the mayor and then us. And then, like, director, you work for us, even though you're with the administration.
Yep.
But I don't understand when we have these things and we do these rollouts that you as a director or someone one of those other 12 people to say, hey, you know what? How come the city council's not here being represented? And I'm a new councilman, 2 years. I don't understand it. And hopefully it does change, because I don't see it. I mean, last year, like I said, the chairman told everybody that came in, hey, especially police and fire, you got to realize, commissioner, it's the mayor, the city council, the commissioner. That's what your organizational chart should say. But I mean, yours don't even have the mayor on it, so you get out of both of them, I guess. So, but I'm just saying that we're always forgotten. And I think if we were involved in this, then obviously we wouldn't be wasting a half hour complaining about it. But it just, the phone calls that I received was like, oh my God, you know what I mean? Ridiculous. So that's no questions. You answer my question. I just, my thought of why someone wasn't there. I don't, maybe you can explain that, I guess.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Vice Chair.
Excuse me, thank you. I just have a couple of follow-up questions. And you did jump in on my questioning and never let me back in, just a point of order.
Sorry about that.
No worries. I did want to, the director had commented that the planning came up or managed the project, but it wasn't. She couldn't take credit for the idea. Whose idea was it? Who can you give credit to for this great idea?
I'm not sure if there's an individual, but there are about 250 cities around the world who have launched similar programs in response to COVID-19. 141 cities have a program that's basically the same as what we have done, called there are two different names for it, either open streets or slow streets. And so it's really been adopted as a best practice around the United States and around the world as a way to, again, create more public space that's available for people to safely be outside. I think one of the experiences, because in Providence in particular, other cities may be different, but in Providence, our sidewalks are about 6 feet wide on average or so. And so it's very, very difficult to be on a sidewalk and pass another person and maintain that safe distance. It's actually not feasible in most cases. And so in those cases, what happens is most time people walk out into the street, and so you have strollers, you have wheelchairs and other every type of person walking, having to walk into the street to maintain that safe distance. And so I think I'm guessing that is where this really originated, was how do we create space that's safe for people to be outside during this time when it is really, really important that we do maintain that distance.
So firstly, I'm a big proponent of providing open space, and making our parks available has been a priority for me during this COVID-19 crisis. The council has been asking for the parks to be open. We started singing that song or shouting that message loud and clear, that people needed a place to find relief for mental health reasons, for just plain, we needed a place to get outside. So I hear you, and I recognize that some of our sidewalks are narrow, and there may be some streets that this might be called for. But when you close down a street next to a park, that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. But moreover, what's troubling to me is Slow Streets was launched on May 2nd. The mayor's executive order didn't open the parks until after that, May 6th, I believe. So that didn't seem to be well planned, well thought out, which is troubling. And again, I understand that there are other cities, other municipalities. You mentioned 250 cities. So somebody went on and did some research and said, hey, this is a great idea. Let's do it in Providence, and let's do it real fast, which cost us money we didn't really have. Councilman Taylor did a great job in questioning regarding the actual cost of this. Troubling is the overtime cost, because we all know that those horses were put out by DPW that was operating, as the council was told, on a skeleton crew during that time. Didn't have full staff, didn't have people to address critical needs, putting up stop signs that had fallen down, which are critical traffic safety issues, as well as other DPW assignments that when the council called, because we were getting calls that there were a number of calls into 311 that had gone unresponded to because there was a skeleton crew in DPW. We were kind of confused when all of a sudden DPW was putting up sawhorses. So there is a cost there. It's a real cost in dollars, but also it's a cost of city services that didn't happen because the administration has chose to launch this program. Again, I think open space is really important. I just don't think that it was planned out well. Just wanted to talk about notification. Councilman Taylor also mentioned that he was not made aware of the program, wasn't advised. I am not aware of any council member that was advised. As a matter of fact, in a PEMA call, many people might not be aware, but the administration briefs the council, staff, and councilors who choose to take part in those calls, initially on a daily basis, about operations of the city. During that call, an administration, a member of the mayor's administration mentions that if the program was going to be rolled out, that the council would be notified before it was rolled out. That didn't happen. So the chief of staff was made aware that there was a program being contemplated, but was promised a full briefing so that our chief of staff could brief the council. So no member of the council was advised. I also live on Pleasant Valley Parkway. It's a city park. Park was closed down, but the streets were also opened for the Slow Streets Initiative. I had neighbors not knowing where to walk. Is the park opened? Is it closed? Can I walk in the street? Am I supposed to walk in the street? So it was extremely confusing. Again, I understand that, the merit of providing open space. Slowing down traffic, I'm all about it. I'm all for it. But this was not well planned out. It was a waste of money. And, it's extremely disappointing. The last question I have is regarding, actually, I want to reaffirm Councilman Taylor's question about the true cost in dollars of the program. So I want to ask that we be provided, that information be provided in totality to our auditor as soon as possible. I also want to just ask about the actual street locations. When you are contemplating the best streets for this initiative, is there any correlation between these streets, slow streets, and the Great Streets Initiative?
For the most part, no. I think there's some corridors that are overlapping in the Great Streets Master Plan, but the driving factors were the ones that we discussed earlier. And those factors aren't necessarily the factors that we looked at for the Great Streets Plan, but in some cases there were overlap.
Okay. About how much overlap? 90%?
I can get you that number from our team. I don't have that in front of me.
That would be very helpful.
Okay, sure.
Just questioning that. And there was, for the record, there was a memo that went out. Certain streets were on that memo, and then immediately it was changed when we inquired as to what was going on. So council was the last to know about this, and it caused concern, grief, and aggravation in the neighborhoods. We play an integral part in communicating news in our neighborhoods. And when you're planning something, and Bonnie, we have an interesting track record, particularly in my ward, on planning and notifying and engaging the community is critical to any program success. So once again here, we seem to have missed on the communication piece, and I think it's a critical one. Thank you. I have no further questions or comments.
Madam Director, can you provide for tomorrow the overlay of the Great Street program with the safe or open street program you have?
Yes.
Okay, provide that. Just wanted to make sure, is there any plans to make this safe street or open street, what are you calling, a permanent adoption?
At this time, no.
Okay. And has it been discussed to make it permanent?
It has not.
Okay. So if it was to be made permanent, I think the next step would be, I guess at that point, you'd probably have to have council approval to make the streets permanently limit this access. Because I guess it would go to the City Council Public Property Committee. Because you're putting up permanent signs of addressing one way, whatever, two ways, stuff like that. That goes to the city. So I'll let you know that I put you on notice that if there's any discussion making it permanent, you have to then submit a plan to the City Council, which then go to I believe it's the Public Properties Committee, which would then vet it accordingly, which by the way will help with public discussion and discourse. Okay?
Yep,
Vice
understood.
Chair?
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Madam Director. Vice Chair?
Thank you,
Vice
Mr. Chair. One follow-up on, the director had indicated there was a planning committee that was engaged in this discussion and crafted the plan. A host of people were identified. I believe a member of the council, chief of staff, should have absolutely been on that planning committee. I think it would have helped provide neighborhood input and certainly briefed the council at an earlier point so that we could have taken part in the discussion. Thank you.
And just for the record, Madam Director, did you say that upon, I guess it would be, when exactly would this Safe Street program expire exactly? What is the expiration date in your department's mind?
We imagined that this would correspond with other safety measures that we're taking aligned with the COVID-19 crisis. So a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 reopening. We haven't set a date. I think it's more of monitoring the conditions. I think as all of these things change daily, it's hard to predict what that exact date would be. But again, it is a temporary measure and it's meant to be responsive to the needs that we are experiencing in our city right now.
Okay, so I think personally right now, the governor's in the process of the phase 1, and the city's under the auspices of the governor's executive order right now. The mayor's executive order failed the last council meeting, and his executive order now no longer exists. So the governor's order prevails. So right now in her phase 1 situation, so when does the council have to take action to address this with you folks, or are you guys going to give us a specific date? Because that's a very ambiguous answer. COVID-19, unfortunately, I hate to say, is not going to really go away. It's not going to go away in a month or 2 months or 3 months. This is a long-term situation, which implies that by me saying that, if I go by your measurement, the Safe Street program is not going away for a long time either, right? So we need to know a definitive date and time when when you're revisiting it and when is it going to expire. And then can you answer that question?
So as I stated, I can't give you a date, but I think the request of saying when are we going to revisit it is a reasonable one. And I can provide that update to you and to your team.
Vice Chair?
Just another follow-up for a deliverable, Mr. Chair. Could we ask the director, or actually probably the public safety personnel, can we get a list of all accidents, any issues with traffic or challenges along those slow streets during the period that they've been closed off, the streets have been closed off? I know of a few. So,
Madam Director, can you provide that information, data to Do you have that? Are you running a survey of this program as it's progressing?
We're collecting all feedback, all comments, everything that we've heard to date on the different street segments. I don't have the crash data, but I'm sure that the police department would be happy to share that with me if I were
Great.
inquiring.
Thank
So
you.
I can
Thank
do.
you, Director.
So, I guess the next, just for the sake of it, I think when you do, I think what your next, an important piece or component should be, you probably need to have some type of like, if you're gonna close someone's street, you probably need to have a public interaction, like a public hearing, discussion with the people on the street so they know what's happening to their street. Okay? That should be part of your component. Unfortunately, during this crisis, and any time there's crisis in society, government sometimes can become overbearing and unwielding. And it's up to the other branches of government, especially in democracy, to keep each branch of government in checks and balance. Right now, because of the COVID-19, most departments and units in government is running unchecked. Because of the crisis, people aren't really fully engaged in what their government is doing to them and to their life and to what's happening. The safety issue is one thing, but also on that, and it's imperative that government, especially these departments, city government, tread lightly, because you're potentially causing more damage than you are in a positive way. And I recognize that that when the council's, my always concern is I feel that when council's expressing their concerns, we get a lot of yes, but we don't get a lot of action. Also, you said you have a lot of volunteers, is that correct?
Yes.
And how are the volunteers doing? Are they, who are the volunteers, and are they doing the survey and the compliance piece? What are they doing? And who are they?
Yeah, we put out a broad call for volunteers. So we had people sign up throughout all different neighborhoods in the city. And what we're asking them to primarily do is walk the corridor and make sure that the barricades are in place, that the signs are still there, and really just sort of the basic maintenance of the infrastructure. That's what we're asking folks to do.
They're doing the sandbags and putting them back up, like you said?
The sandbags were delivered by DPW crews, but the volunteers are checking each day or a couple of times a day to make sure that everything is still in place.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Yes, President Pro Tem.
So, Director, I mean, this is, several times you say that you got volunteers out there. I mean, I wasn't going to weigh in on it. I mean, this was a poorly launched project from the beginning. I knew nothing about it. My constituents knew nothing about it. 2 days after they shut down Amherst Street, the Department of Public Works came back and removed all the barriers because they were either run over, destroyed, busted. So that street was open right back up to two-way traffic. And again, you shut down Amherst Street, where right on the next block you have Jocelyn Park, which is right in walking distance. You have Riverside Park, which is a block away. Made no sense on Amherst Street. That's opened back up. It didn't work. All the barriers, everything got destroyed, broken, and it's all been opened back up. I've sent numerous pictures to the administration every day about the barriers that are all tipped over along Leah Street, Roanoke Street between Carlton and Academy. Complete total mess. I've gone there myself and pick up these barricades. So I like to know, where are these volunteers at? Because they're not up here in Ward 6 or abutting Ward 5 as well. Because these barricades are tipped over all over the place. Tomorrow morning, I'll take pictures and I'll start sending them to you, because the volunteers are not up in this neighborhood.
Madam Director, do you have a reply?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, it has been challenging to have the same number of volunteers in each neighborhood. So what we've been trying to do is redeploy everybody so that each corridor gets at least a walkthrough a few times a day. But we do have pockets where there are more volunteers that live close by to some of these areas. So we're asking folks to redeploy to areas even outside of their neighborhoods to make sure that we have the same set of eyes and we're walking by these barriers. Nobody wants the barriers to be a hazard, a traffic hazard, or just to be ineffective. So we are doing our best to make sure that that is not the case, though I do hear you. I live near Roger Williams Park and I pick up barriers often as well. So it is, like I said before, part of the issue is that it has been very windy and they are not like the really solid wood barricades. They are plastic. They're heavy, durable plastic, but they.
Madam Director,
Yes.
Madam Director, I actually think you're missing the point. I think what the President Pro Tem's talking about is that the program's been a failure. That's what he's saying. You're still caught up in this about the barriers. He's talking about the program's a failure. That's what he's talking about.
Okay,
That's the feedback.
I've heard the feedback.
Director, what you should be checking off is not that the barriers are light and falling down because of the wind. You should be checking off that President Pro Tem in his word is expressing to you that it's been a failure and a nuisance for his neighborhood. That's the information you should be writing down and then digesting and then acting, which two things. One, continue with the obstinate behavior of ignoring a neighborhood's request, or remove the barriers and move forward. That's what it's not about the plastic, not the lightness of it. It's not about if the wind blows them down. It's about what happens is the President Pro Tem was transmitting a lot of information. You didn't receive any of it. So that's what we need to acknowledge. But so I want you to understand that. Does that make sense, President Pro Tem?
It does.
That's what I'm hearing.
No, it makes perfect sense, Mr. Chairman. And if I also may add, I also appreciate the fact that you came out and somebody came out and decided that they were going to put sandbags so that the things wouldn't blow away or tip over and whatnot. But now I have busted open sandbags that are all on Academy and Roanoke, up and down Roanoke Street, where the trucks just run them over because of the deliveries that they have to make coming in and out of the Dunkin' Donuts, the laundromat on the corner. So now not only do I got broken barricades, but I got busted open sandbags all over the neighborhood as well.
Mr. Chair.
Vice Chair.
The Pro Tem makes some interesting points, and I heard the director state that volunteers are maintaining these barricades and sandbags. Is anyone in DPW policing the streets or policing these obstacles that are in our streets?
Do you mean the police department?
I mean DPW, the people that put the barriers up.
Oh, sure.
The barriers. Are they charged with monitoring the appropriate placement? Are they charged with making sure they're in a safe location? Are they charged with policing the sandbags as Pro Tem? Just explain, many of them are burst open and we've got sands that are tripping, slipping hazards. Everybody knows, riding a bike on sand or walking on sand is treacherous. So who is maintaining that? Who's monitoring that?
Sure. So the DPW folks are going out when they hear of a burst sandbag to remove it and replace it. So they are attempting to keep on top of that. The locations themselves were reviewed with the traffic engineer and DPW staff to figure out the best locations for those areas. And so the volunteers and staff have sort of that location in mind of where the location should be when they're going out there. But DPW staff aren't charged with going out to the site just to go out. They go out if there's a concern or there's been a problem that's been flagged.
Well, these barriers are in a street and they're redirecting traffic. They're supposedly protecting people, our children, are bikers, people that are in the middle of the street. So I think because we're placing barricades, we have a duty and a responsibility to maintain them, to make sure they're appropriately placed, to protect the people that are now walking in the middle of our streets. You know, I'm talking about an example of, you know, I asked you about crashes or traffic hazards or traffic problems.
Right.
I'm aware of a police officer that was tailgated on one of these streets and actually had to give a ticket to a car that was tailgating him while he was doing 15 miles an hour, albeit it was a 10-mile-an-hour slow street. He was doing 15 because he was quite honestly afraid the car was going to hit him. It was behind him blowing his horn the entire way. So, you know, at that day, the barricade was pushed to the side, and signs probably were not well displayed. So when we're putting traffic barricades and signage in the middle of our streets, the city has a duty to police them. And I don't mean public safety police. I mean the public safety, the DPW staff that is charged with making sure they're in the right place, there's signage there. I think it's great that we've engaged volunteers. I just don't necessarily feel if we lose a life on these streets and a volunteer was responsible for putting the barricades up, that is a good thing. It puts us in a bad place, and not to mention we have a duty and an obligation to make sure these streets are safe. So I think you need to rethink that.
Thank you. And I just asked that, this is my lesson on this thing, for the director and the deputy director. I asked them to think about, whenever I go before the zoning board, or excuse me, the license board, I always ask the commission, or the board themselves, to step in the shoes of the neighborhood or the neighbor who's abutting this proposed new business or new expansion, and view it from their particular eyes. And I'll give you an example. Let's pretend you bought a house and you're on one of the streets of the city of Providence, and it's a nice street, right? It's one of those streets that aren't so busy, it's fine. Then the city basically does a semi-closing thing to it, and the city says, we want to welcome everybody in the neighborhood to walk that street now, and basically make a mini park in front of your house. People walking and strolling. And of course you folks say, oh, this is great, people have a place, an open space. Well, think about the person who just, and I presume that's the reason what happened on Blackstone Boulevard, because they probably said, I'm paying all these taxes. Now there's the walking track in the middle, but I don't need the very front of my house to become the walking track also. So I won't be surprised that's pretty much happening. They're saying, like, I moved to Blackstone because I know the walking track's in the middle, but it's not in front of my house right there with all these people going and the streets closed. So it's got to do with a couple of things. It's got to do with the city contract with the people that bought a house, are paying taxes, paying all our salaries, and the social contract where they said, okay, if I bought a house near Roger Williams Park that's near the road, they know, okay, my house is near the park or close to the park, and I know what to expect. When the city arbitrarily and capriciously changes the complete dynamics of the street in front of my house without me knowing, that is the disservice. That's the disrespectfulness. That's what creates resentfulness or resentment by the people that pay all your salaries, because they feel they don't have a voice. Right now, as you just mentioned, because you decided to do this program based on the COVID-19, the whole pandemic, I get it. So think about what's going on. People in their homes, they're in their homes for weeks. They don't know if they have a job, they're laid off, or they're not going to have a job. They don't know how they're going to pay their bills in 4 or 5 months from now, right? They can't leave their homes, and all of a sudden the city then says, okay, we're going to close the street arbitrarily and capriciously, and we're going to make it into a park or a walking area for everybody to come. What I'm saying is that I hope that how your department and the other departments, because by the way, we also had a conversation with other departments involved in this program. I hope you folks are not treated the way treated the same way you're treating the people that we represent. That's the point here. That's the issue. And it has to do with, and I always use this, and I use this word a lot, it's hubris, it's ego, it's arrogance. It's the sense that you know far better than everybody else in the world. And the problem is that ego, that hubris that you have, that you're hurting people and you're creating resentment out there and you're making it worse. And I'm just saying, I don't think it's fair what you're doing to the people in I'm going to use my neighborhood in particular. I think you needed to find, if you needed volunteers, well then you should have contacted the people on the streets and asked them to be volunteers. But I think it's interesting that no one did that. So you have all these volunteers to implement a new program citywide, but no one called anybody on the street that's going to be impacted to be a volunteer? Who better than a person from that street? I get the council. I get the idea why the administration and all your departments don't want to talk to the council. We get that. I've seen that game and that movie year after year after year. That's a traditional game that your department always plays, and many of the departments in the city. The only time you look for anything for the council is when you're looking for your money to get paid, or your pay raises, or your salaries, or your new jobs, right? Why don't you ask the people on the street, say, would you like to volunteer for this program? And I'll make a bet you would have got some feedback, direct feedback. And that's the part that doesn't make any sense. From a department that's called what? The Department of Planning. Of all departments, you folks should have been the ones on the tip of the spear of making sure the public was involved, or at least the people on the street understood what you were doing. And I understand you say, what's the big deal? The problem is, if we don't check you for this, we know you will do bigger and greater damage down the line. And that's how it all dovetails, how it talked about keeping government in check during times of crisis. Because what's next? What's the next thing the planning department or whatever departments have up their sleeve to impact in a potential harmful way the citizens of Providence without letting them know, without letting the legislative branch know, without letting have public discourse? Okay? I understand that's very fashionable in many countries like China and North Korea and those wonderful socialist experiment countries. But you know what? We haven't lost our Constitution, and we shouldn't lose our sense of democracy. And we shouldn't lose our voice of reason because of panic. That's kind of where I am in that. So I ask you, you need to revisit this program. You're looking for funding for your budget here. I'm letting you know that your funding for this budget has issues. And part of the issues is this program here is another example. Now I'm going to get to now I'm going to go to now to your budget here, and I want to got some questions. It's getting a little late, so we're probably going to have to carry over until tomorrow anyway. But I want to ask you a question about city boards and commissions on your organizational chart.
Yep.
Madam Director, can you explain to me? And I just want to know, on all these boards and commissions, how are they created? How was the City Plan Commission was created by what? What document created the City Plan Commission?
Sure. The city charter created the city plan commission. I'm sorry?
Okay. Okay, that's great. How about the Historic District Commission?
So Bob Azar, who's the deputy director and is here with us, really oversees the boards and commissions. So I'd want to give him the opportunity.
Great. Deputy Director, the Historic District Commission, how did it come into an existence? How was it created and by what authority?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. It was created by the City Council. It's a creation of the zoning ordinance in accordance with the Historic District State Enabling Legislation.
Great, thank you. How about the Downtown Design Review Committee?
Downtown Design Review Committee is a development plan review committee that's created in the zoning ordinance by the City Council under the authority of the State Zoning Enabling Act. Okay.
Providence Redevelopment Agency?
The Redevelopment Agency was created by the City Council. I believe that it's in the charter and also pursuant to state enabling legislation.
All right. Capital Center Commission,
Good one. Created by state special legislation and city ordinance.
okay. And the Harbor Management Commission,
That I believe is in the charter.
is it presently operating and
It is.
staffed?
It
It
is.
is.
Okay. Okay. Providence Public Building Authority,
Charter, subject to state enabling legislation and is currently operating, yes.
Providence Business Loan Fund,
That is, I think, a little outside of my purview.
So can someone tell me where is the Providence Business Loan Fund? Is it a commission, a committee, a group of one? What is it?
Yeah, it is,
Madam Director?
yeah, sure. So the Providence Business Loan Fund has a separate board of directors, much like the Providence Redevelopment Agency. It is chaired by the mayor's chief of staff. And the reason why it appears here is because our department staffs that board. So Sally is the fiscal agent for that board, and other members of the planning department monitor the work of the PBLF, the loans that are given out, et cetera.
Do you know how it was created?
So the modern day PBLF is the next iteration of what was called PEDP many years ago, the Providence Economic Development Partnership, I believe. I'm not sure the sort of the legal context which created that PEDP at the time. Larry Mancini may be able to jump in. Larry, do you have historic knowledge on that?
I do, Mr. Chairman. So, pre-1980, I believe there was a commercial loan entity known as the Providence Local Development Corporation, known as PLDC, and it was sometime in the early 90s that agency was merged with a state-sponsored agency known as the Providence Industrial Development Corporation, known as PIDC. That particular entity made nothing but commercial and/or industrial or manufacturing loans. During the administrations of the 1990s, it was merged into what was known then as the Providence Economic Development Corporation. So those two entities became one, and that held purview, I believe, right through the most recent time. And then as a result of that, they were always a lending agency. You might say the term that was used is always the lender of last resort. Businesses who are looking to start up businesses in the city, or with job creation, met certain national objectives, and one of them defined by HUD in certain cases, elimination of slum and blight, job creation, other certain national objectives, all were the scope of legislative purview. And then I believe during this most current administration, it was restyled to be a more active loan fund associated with Providence businesses, but its genesis began as loan or lending agencies from as far back as some 40 or 50 years ago.
Thank you, Mr. Mancini. So I still like to know, what is the present status of it? Who are the board members? What's the fund balance? How many loans? Who has loans? What loans are there? Who has that information? Mr. Azar, Deputy Director, do you have that information, sir? You are muted, sir.
Thank you. I don't have that information, no.
Who would have that information?
I can get you that information, Mr. Chairman.
So we need a breakdown of that. I'd like to also know how it's funded. Also, the departments on these commissions I mentioned and committees, have they finished up their mission statement? Something like they're no longer a valid mission statement? Any of them?
No, they're all active, and they are all acting in accordance with their established missions.
Okay, so what I'd like you to do is for tomorrow, I want you to put together, you can work with the city solicitor's office, Solicitor Cheverini if you could. I'd like you to identify each one of those departments. What's the board makeup? Do they have money, are they funded? Do they have salaries? Do they have a fund to utilize, money to, spend, et cetera? Do they have a budget? Also, the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee, can you tell me the genesis of that one, sir?
That's not a board that I staff, but I know that that's a committee that I believe was established by Mayor Taveras by executive order, and it has continued under Mayor Alorza, and it's made up. Yes, sir.
So, Solicitor Cheverini, are you on the phone, sir?
Yes, sir.
So, an executive order, how long does an executive order last?
Well, I'd have to read it, but typically for the term of the particular mayor, at the onset, I'd have to review it.
Well, tell me, the executive order of the governor's power to a state statute, how long does the governor's executive order last?
There is a time frame. I don't know, 30 days? I'm not certain.
All right. So, is it fair to say that, would it be fair to say that the mayor of Providence's executive orders last longer than the governor's executive orders? Is that what we're saying?
I don't know if Mayor Alorza reissued one. I'd have to check before I could properly respond.
Yeah, so please check. And could you also have the breakdown of that, Deputy Director? Do you have the breakdown of, do they have a budget? Who's on that commission? What do they do? What's their mission statement, et cetera? Okay?
Yep, be happy to do that for you. Thank you.
I know it's getting 8 o'clock, and I don't mean to, I know it's getting late in the hour for the committee members. I wanted to get into the budget. I know we kind of went down the road of this whole, open, safe street, but clearly people are very passionate about it, so about the impact and the effect. So I would ask the committee, I think we should do is at night, and across the director and the deputy director and the staff, what we'll do is we'll follow up. What I was just make a motion to continue till tomorrow, the planning department, so we can continue with the conversations for the finances, because we just started scratching the surface. All right. So a motion by Vice Chair. Do I have a second?
Second.
By Councilman. Discussion. Director and Deputy Director, do you understand, we're doing so for tomorrow? We're going to bring you back tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, excuse me just
Deputy
a minute.
Director?
Sir, just to let you know, there is a City Planning Commission meeting tomorrow night that I'm required to attend, but I will sort of provide you with all the information you need.
What time is the City Planning Commission, sir?
It starts at 4:45, and it's likely to go at least 2 hours.
Okay, so if you could, when you're done, if you want to then hop on to ours, because clearly we go a little bit long here, okay?
Sure.
Thank you, Deputy Director. Director, thank you both, by the way, this evening, and Ms. Brito and Mr. Mancini and all the administration, and council, committee members and colleagues. So any other discussion on this motion?
No.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It passes unanimously. So then, I think what I do is just a motion to continue, I believe, everything until the next finance meeting. Is that right, Madam Clerk?
Yes.
All right. So do I have a motion?
Second.
Motion by Vice Chair, second by Councilman Taylor. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. And then, thank you all for participating this evening. We do appreciate it. It gets a little hot on the collar, but everybody's very passionate about what they do here. And and we see it on your side too. With that, any more further business before this honorable committee, Madam Vice Chair?
Motion to adjourn, sir.
Second.
Vice Chair, second by Councilman Taylor. Discussion? All in favor?